Northwest Fresh Podcast.
I'm so happy to have Fred Stewart on the show. Thanks for coming, Fred.
No, no problem.
Yeah.
Thanks for the invite.
I'll give you some accolades, your titles. You're president and founder of Vanport, Escrow and Title,
Yes.
as you got on there. U.S. Marine Corps veteran.
Yep.
Longtime Portlander.
Longtime Portlander.
Am I missing anything else?
Yeah, well, I've been in Portland since I was 11. I'm an Army brat, so before I came to Portland, I lived all over the world
Okay.
as a kid,
Just moving around.
just moving around, and came here. It was since when I was 11, and with the exception of the time I was in the Marines, I was here, and even most of the time I was in the Marines, I was here. Went to PSU, built a real estate career, got into real estate in 1988. Been in real estate in one form or another ever since. Took a little bit of a break. Bought a bar for a little while.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Bought a bar for a year.
It sounds fun, but also I understand the risks of that
It-
kind of business.
It was fun until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And then I bought, then I went into banking, and then I went back into real estate.
Okay.
And about 7 years ago now, geez, yeah, 7 years ago now, I decided to get into escrow and title, and I created Vanport Escrow and Title Company.
Awesome.
Mhm.
I was going to shout you out. Like, I had heard about you kind of in the housing world here in Portland for a while, but I think I first saw you on Oregon Voters Digest, and I was
Yep.
going to shout out Bruce Broussard.
Yep.
He's running for Metro President, which I think is cool.
Yeah, it is. He's
Yeah.
he's like 87
He's-
years old.
Yeah.
And he's been around, and to me, Bruce is a historical figure in that he's met everybody. He's met
Absolutely, yeah.
Tom McCall, Goldschmidt, every significant Portlander, and most, I'd say, significant Oregonians
Yeah.
of the last 60 years he's met.
Yeah, he's been doing that show for
And quite a
long-
few of them he was friends with.
Yeah.
I mean, the stories he's got, and he's got his video archive is crazy.
Yeah.
Of who he's got, and some of the outtakes and discussions. I keep telling him he has to work something out with the Oregon Historical Society, because
That would be great. Yeah.
he's got on video literally the DNA of modern day Portland.
Yeah, it's like history. Yeah.
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 And he said, he'll get around to it, but I don't think he truly appreciates how important, that is.
Yeah. Because I worked for 10 years in TV here at KGW and
Mhm.
Coin, and I think it's like just the same. Like, they have all this historical footage.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing with his stuff.
It's the same thing. And, you gotta tell you something, you're going to love this. You're a little younger than me. I'm 61. 40 years ago, they really didn't appreciate that. You'd be surprised what they destroyed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Somewhere about 40 years ago, they began to figure out, when videotape, when the Betamax came out and
Yeah.
stuff. I think somebody said, hey, we got stuff that we can, that's historical.
Yeah.
And, like one guy I was talking to, I'm sure he's passed on. He was in his 60s back then. I was a teenager. And he was talking about how they had the Kennedys visited Portland a lot, both John and Robert, a lot. And he was talking to this one guy about these Kennedy tapes that they had found and then recycled. And when I say tapes, they weren't cassette tapes.
Right.
They were like reel-to-reel stuff.
Yeah.
That they were still using for some things.
Yeah.
I don't know what, maybe short commercials or something.
Right.
Anyway, he says, I really wish he hadn't taped over that Kennedy stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah, they still even don't really, like, when I worked at those places, you'd have to like go in the basement and find all the old tapes or sometimes even older stuff, and they just don't really take care of it. Maybe they're doing a better job now, but I don't know.
well, there's some around the country they are. I've seen some interesting reports about that, about how there are people who are going around and they've got certain TV stations that are merging or going
Yeah.
out of business.
Right.
So people are trying to bum rush into their basement and see what they can dig out.
Get all that archive. Yeah.
But next time you see Bruce, you should definitely.
Well, I was gonna say I'm gonna vote for him because for Metro President. I know it's kind of a long shot thing, but like I had Lynn Peterson, the previous president, on this show a while back, and I'm like not the hugest fan of Metro, and I think
Yeah.
he could like do some good there.
Well, I was a Future Vision commissioner. They got the Future Vision going on right now, thank God. For the, I think for the 2060, I was in for the 2040. And I was the youngest guy there. And I remember the eyeballs rolled into the back of everybody's head when I said, as a young man, I was like 28 at the time. I said, all we need is Metro. We need to get rid of all these guys. Either we get rid of Metro, get rid of the county, and just have a city government.
Right. Yeah.
Or we'd have a county, no Metro, no city, or we just make it Metro.
Yeah. Right.
I said, us young folks are spending so much money for public services.
Yeah. And it's confusing. I had a guy in here who's trying to do an initiative to combine the city and the county, basically. But yeah, it's just like for me, there's like a lot of people don't even know about Metro. It's just another layer, and so it's like city, county, Metro, and the state.
I wish him nothing but success. I think he's he's on the right track, but unfortunately, there's probably another 40,000 boomers that are older than me they got to pass on, because it's a concept that older people don't get. I mean, I had to try to sell it to, this is 1993. So I was trying to sell it to people who were in their 70s and 80s.
Right.
And they were like looking at me like I was talking crazy talk.
Right, yeah.
Like, who would be mayor?
Yeah.
Well, you still have a mayor, just be in a different system.
Yeah.
And they do the same thing. Well, Metro doesn't have a mayor. And I said, well, yeah, it doesn't, but it can.
Yeah.
You can modify it and change.
Totally, yeah. I'm totally on your side.
And how it is when you're young, when you're telling giving an idea to an older person and they're looking at you like,
right,
you just don't understand.
Right, yeah.
You can't have a government without a mayor.
Right, yeah. Just change everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine pointed out that when they brought Metro online, the argument, the debate, there were people back then who were afraid that the head of Metro was going to be like the mayor, like of all mayors, like, the commission. So that's why they ended up calling it the president or something like that.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Little different to make sure nobody feels that,
you're not stepping on the toes of
exactly.
Portland mayor or something. Yeah.
Definitely before my time, but it makes sense because I was like, why are they calling the Metro president? What's wrong with chair?
Yeah. Yeah, I want to get into some of this stuff, and I do want to talk a lot about housing because you're like an expert in that. Yeah. Portland, your background, but I wanted to start with like some topical stuff. I was curious because like you post a lot, and I agree with a lot of the stuff you post. I disagree with some of it, but it's always interesting stuff. And
I can tell people, feel free to disagree.
Yeah,
One of the gifts I hope to give people in Portland is somebody who's not going to hate their guts.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Right. Yeah. No, it's always interesting, and it's always a perspective, that's cool to me. I was curious, first of all, like I've done a couple episodes recently about the Home Forward scandal, I called it. I'm just curious, like your overall thoughts on that, and like what needs to happen with that public housing authority.
Well, it's new leadership. I mean, I don't know these people like I knew the older people.
Okay.
But I see a lot of stuff that goes down. And you've heard me talk about this. People hate it when I talk about this, but I say we got a lot. Portland is a port city.
Yeah.
And it grows because we like sex and we make a lot of babies. But it also grows because of a lot of people who come to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
And this has happened before in Portland history. We've got a lot of people who come to Portland they're not intending on being Portlanders.
Mm.
When I was growing up here, people come to Portland and it was like, I'm going to be a Portlander.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Where they're from doesn't exist.
You just leave that behind.
Poof.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They get their weed, they get their beer. Yeah. Back in the 70s and 80s, get their hacky sack, you know what I'm talking about? Right. I'm a Portlander, in the 80s and 90s, it was their bike. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We don't have that now. Mm. We got a lot of people who come to Portland and they're not Portlanders. They're not loyal to Portland. They're loyal to the part of Portland that allows them to do what they want to do, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. I'm gay. Of course, Portland wasn't that bad. It wasn't as good as it should have been, but it wasn't that bad 50 years ago to be gay in Portland.
Right. It's probably ahead of the other rest of the country. Yeah.
Portland has always been, I think you're nuts, but you can be nuts over there.
Right.
I'm not going to condemn you for you doing you. You leave me alone.
Yeah.
Don't infringe on me being me. I'm going to go over here and, be crazy. I tell people I grew up in a neighborhood with a bunch of hippies. So we had everything, including, naked women running around, not around the block, but on their property,
Sure. Yeah.
smoking weed
Yeah.
outside, Hare Krishnas.
Probably even back, like LSD and all that
LSD, they
stuff.
probably
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
I bet they were.
Yeah.
It would surprise me if they weren't.
Yeah.
I remember one of my neighbors was growing weed on his porch.
Yeah.
And we didn't know it was weed because I'm like 12, 13 years old
Right.
and sheltered and everything like that. They had a big old weed thing on their porch. Nobody cared.
Right. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
cops saw it. I'm sure the cops saw it.
Yeah.
Even
then, it was totally fine.
they're like, what is he going to do? He's got one or two bushes or whatever.
Yeah.
What?
It's not like a field of it. Or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And would drive right by. See, that's old Portland was a lot. But another thing that Portland was, and it was up like that up until I tell people things started changing in the early 2000s. We supported each other being nuts. Really.
Yeah.
I tell people it's just different. So how does that affect with housing? We've got people who come here and they get into housing and they're frauds. And when I say they're frauds, they're just looking for a job. They are not trying to legitimately solve a problem, like the old folks were, like Gretchen Kafori and a bunch of others. And
that's funny. I remember one of the first apartments downtown when I moved here in 2005 that I visited was like named after her.
Yeah,
it was like a low income.
Gretchen Kafori was. To me, I mean, I've met a lot of politicians, and I've said this. I tell people I'm amazed that we don't hear her name more often, especially around housing. She's got to be, and I say this with affection, the baddest bitch I've ever met.
Wow. Yeah.
The woman was committed. She was smart.
And what I don't even remember. What was she, mayor or something? Or
she was a city commissioner.
Okay, gotcha.
And she, to me, I mean, there were people who were trying to deal with the housing issue, and the housing issue was different. The housing issue was different back then,
right?
But we still had, needs. And she was a good visionary on this, in that she knew that the values of real estate were going to go up faster than what people estimated. I didn't teach Gretchen Kafori anything. She taught me a few things. I never taught her anything. I probably confirmed things. I'm talking about.
So were you kind of like a housing advisor with her?
Not really. Her and Eric Sten. Eric Sten used to work for her, and other people who, they used to ask me for information. And I took her on a few tours of Northeast Portland and one tour of Southeast Portland. I mean, anything they asked me to do, I just helped them. But what I'm getting to is that's that type of leadership, that type of personality, that type of boldness. I don't want to get into the whole long story because it is a long story, but we had this issue with Dominion Capital, which was a group of fraudsters that came into Portland and defrauded Portlanders, bought a bunch of homes dirt cheap. I mean, when I say dirt cheap, there were houses that they bought. I can point to they paid under $5,000 for it.
Wow.
I mean, their average is probably around 15, but this gives you an idea of what the mid to late 80s was like in real estate,
just
right?
Pick all that up and
they'd buy these homes. Let's say they'd pick it up for 10, and then they turn around and sell it to on a lease option. So you're a renter, but you're leasing it to buy.
Sure. Okay. And
they'd do something like 50 grand.
Wow.
And the person would have to do the work themselves to make it.
Okay.
They put everything on one deed. See, this made it later on. Legislature made sure this can never happen again. They put everything on one deed, so you can't get clear title until all of the other properties are paid off too.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I mean, it was a complete fraud.
Wow.
So you had all these people throwing up. They made millions.
So there's like a collection of people all on this one deed.
Exactly.
That's it. That's crazy.
That is illegal now. Okay. I mean, if you find someone doing that now,
it's totally illegal.
It's totally illegal. Make sure you let your attorney know and proper authorities.
And when this was like 90s?
Yep, late 80s, 1989, 1990.
Okay.
And so anyway, when the state decided to move forward, with a criminal complaint. It forced them into bankruptcy, and I'm sure a person like Gretchen Kafori um, was watching this, and then that's when the city struck, and they went after the properties in bankruptcy to buy them. 350 of them, over 350 of them,
Wow.
and yeah, and they were on like 4 different deeds. I may be wrong about the number of deeds, but there was nowhere near 350
Right,
deeds,
right. It
right?
was like a group deed or something. Yeah.
And the city went in and you know, God bless them. The guys were going to kick everybody out of the house. They had a clause in their lease that they could cancel the lease.
Mm.
So
This
when
is
the
Dominion or whatever.
Dominion
Yeah.
Capital,
Yeah.
so they were going to cancel all of the leases, kick everybody out, and then sell those properties to another investor. You know,
Which is even more fraudulent. It's like
even
just
more.
take all their money that they've been leasing
It is
this
it
and
is
yeah.
absolute fraud.
Yeah.
It is. This shows you the importance of government. And even though Democrats, we suck right now, this is a story when I talk about when Democrats were good.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a Republican could have pulled this one off. I do not think
right.
back then. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not putting my Republican friends
Yeah.
down, but I don't think
I get what you're
a
saying. Yeah.
conservative
Yeah.
city commissioner would have been as bold and exacting um, as Gretchen was. And she, the houses, you're gonna love this. 350 homes. Their estimate value at the time was a little over $2.5 million.
Oh my God.
That shows you how
That's
cheap real estate
incredible.
was back then. So
Yeah.
350
And
homes.
now you get maybe
Some
2 homes for that or
some of
yeah.
those homes I know where not. I don't know where all of them are, but a couple of those homes that I know right off the bat, they're worth over $1 million each, even in this market. I mean, they're
Right.
impressive. They're
Yeah.
massive. They were built for some significant Portlanders back in the day. They're gorgeous. They're even a couple of them were in Irvington. Most of them weren't in Irvington. Most of them were in places like Piedmont, Walnut Park, Megley Highland, Boise, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a couple that made it. That were even in Irvington.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I tell people, some of those houses, I bet if you grabbed those houses today, it'd be make $1 billion. I mean, because
Right.
you're talking about 350 plus homes, probably an average sales price 600,000, 700,000.
That's it. No, I've never even heard any of this. It's really
Yeah,
fascinating. And so the city ended up
the city went and bought it. It was tough. The investors ran up the bid in bankruptcy from 2 million to 13 million bucks.
okay.
Now you got to remember, 13 million bucks for 350 homes was highway robbery back in the day. I mean, most people would have said hell no.
Right.
And this
Like
is
sticker
I like
shock,
telling the
yeah.
story to show you where governments come in. Technically, Gretchen should have not done what she did.
Mm.
The legitimate thing as a city commissioner, as an elected official, is you don't let the people's money be basically stolen. But she knew if the city didn't buy these properties, these people were on the street. I'm literally. I mean,
Right.
the guy came to court, and his briefcase was the eviction notices that he was going to mail.
Damn.
Mail out, because back then, you may still have to do it today. You have to mail and you have to serve.
Okay, both.
So he had the 350 plus in his briefcase. He was going to go kick everybody out. And they ended up buying all those properties for 13 million, which today is a bargain. 350 homes
Right, yeah.
for 13 million.
Yeah.
There's no way that's not a good deal today.
Right.
But this is, I think, January of 1990, I think it is. And paying 13 million for all those homes. Anyway, that's what kicked the city off into being aggressive into affordable housing. She took those 350 homes, created a nonprofit called PCRI. They've done incredible work over the last 30 years, 40 years. I'm coming up on 40 years. Done incredible work. And I don't know how many of those people ended up being able to buy the homes. They did help some people buy the homes. Some of those homes are too far gone. They couldn't buy them. Some of them even got torn down. That shows you how much of a fraudsters these were. They had people working on homes that were technically, they should have been condemned, and they were. But they did help some people buy homes. They did buy the homes that they were in, and they separated. It took years to separate all of the, because you got to remember, if you got all these homes. Let's say you got 10 homes in one deed. Well, that means you got all the taxes, all the liens, all the judgments are against everything on that deed.
Right. You got to
So
sort it all
you got to
out.
sort it
And
all out. It took them
yeah,
years.
yeah.
I don't know how much money in legal fees the PCRI and possibly even the city paid to get it unraveled. But to me, that's one of the shining moments in Portland history.
Yeah.
And I watched the city commissioner do what we expect a city commissioner to do.
Right.
Be bold, be decisive, bring vision.
And you're saying, yeah, because I would agree with that. Like, I talk about housing all the time here, and with like the current council, and just even outside of that, like, there's just nobody, like, there's not like a housing czar that's really leading that charge.
That was Gretchen. And the thing is, they debated, they argued. The city council back then didn't get along that well. They never do. City commissioners, historically, I mean, they always put a great face on, when you see them in public.
Right,
but
right.
in the last 40 years, I tell my friends, some of our city commissioners hated each other.
Yeah.
They didn't get along. How often do you see photos of them casually hanging out with each other? You know what I mean? But they work together. And you're right. You need that person with clarity and vision, and not just that trust. People they may disagree with her, but they trusted her judgment. You see what I'm talking about? So you could negotiate. You go, and she led the city into this era of effective affordable housing. We've had efforts before Gretchen, but Gretchen is, to me, in the last 100 years.
No, yeah, that's really interesting because I didn't honestly never put that much thought into her. Like, I've just seen her name like on these buildings and stuff.
It's our journalists; they all suck.
Yeah,
they'll talk about everybody else that's meaningless, does nothing, and then they'll ignore somebody like Gretchen.
Totally, yeah. Well, because for me, I hear a lot back to like Vera Katz, and then it kind of stops.
Vera was important too. And Vera and Gretchen. Vera was the Speaker of the House when this was. She hadn't run for mayor yet, and she was friends with Gretchen. Her and Gretchen went back to the RFK campaign, at least, if not before then. Two women that aren't talked about enough. That's what I was telling everybody. I keep seeing on Facebook and even down at our city council all these women that they like to talk about. Oh, this woman's a warrior, and she's, and what has she done? And what she's done is, she got dressed. Give me a story. You've heard me say that, tell me a story. I want to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, I got stories. I mean, Gretchen and Vera, these are women that I think are young girls. I'm not joking. Should meet. When my daughter was born in 1997, I made sure as often as I could, my daughter got to meet both of those women. I mean, I'm not joking.
Yeah. It's just good influence. And
good influence, excellent leadership, capabilities. We don't have that right now. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean or nothing, but
no, I agree. I mean,
Gretchen and Vera would run circles. As old as they would be if they were alive today, as old as they would run circles. And I'll show you how badass Gretchen was. Think about who her daughter is, Deborah.
Right.
Think about it. Look what she raised. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, dang.
Yeah.
She had Deborah, and it's not like Deborah's an idiot either. You know what I mean? It's
she had a long legacy here, and
and she's still young. She's not that old. She may come back. I
think she's been at PPS for a while now, right? Yeah.
But you see, we don't. That's what I was telling people on Facebook. That's why I like talking about this stuff. Where are those people? I mean, we're talking about women right now.
No,
there's men this way. You know what I'm talking about?
I totally agree.
But
like, there's just an absence of that kind of
stuff. Where are they?
Yeah.
This has happened. So that's why lately, in the last week, I started posting on my Facebook politicians.
Yeah. I seen, from you were posting some of the black commissioners that I'd never even seen.
And I'm not saying anything, but just posting their resumes.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I've been talking to people. And I'm so pissed off at our local journalism community. I mean, they're not like the old guys. I think people need to be reminded what is a good elected leader.
Yeah.
What is an effective? What kind of what things you see on a resume of a good elected leader?
Yeah, because you feel like right now the coverage of that from local press is just kind of uneven, or like they'll highlight stuff even if it's like nothing.
Yeah,
Like,
they highlight a lot of nothing. They do a lot of, they lie a lot. They're very racist. I mean, how they treat black people in Portland, it's just it's just stupid. And I hate this because I love Portland.
yeah.
I don't think I could have existed as the way I do in any other place but Portland. I came to Portland in '76. And before I even got, in the car, my grandfather said, "This is your home now. This is your hometown. You're going to love it here." And he's right. We got great people here. Yes, it's mostly white and everything, but this is a progressive town. And this is the sense of Portland is always trying to be better people. We try to look out for each other. We also try to stay out of people's way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
And my God, this group of people that we've got that's invaded, this town, they are so anti-Portland. That's why a guy like me, I can't stand it when people say keep Portland weird, because though I've always loved that statement, but I'm looking around, it's attracted a lot of people who are more focused on being weird than being part of a community, being part of Portland.
That's really interesting.
You know?
I've never heard that.
Because the people who were weird when I was growing up, the guys who put chemical toilets in their homes because they didn't want to flush it into the river because the fish were there.
Right, it's an environmental
They
thing.
weren't weird. This is how they felt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? The guys who, what do you call it, had wood stoves because they felt wood was better than burning oil or natural gas. Yeah. They weren't weird. The guys that collected rainwater and filtered it, through coal and everything, did the whole, they weren't weird. The guys that smoked weed, they weren't weird. This is how they felt they should be. Talking about
totally, yeah.
They weren't weird.
Right.
I mean, it was weird to an outsider.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I told people, I remember a long time ago, I forgot what the protest was, but we had a protest in Portland. I was in high school. I think I was a sophomore in high school. And a bunch of women decided, it's like 100 of them, to protest topless. So imagine being like a 15-year-old, you get on TriMet, got all these topless, grown-ass women, right? But what I'm getting to is they were protesting not because of anything other than they're trying to make things better here. You know what I mean? I'm sure they wanted the rest of the world to be good too.
Right,
I'm sure. But people were trying to address things here.
Right.
How to make things better here.
It's community focused, not like this global.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is no way a Portlander in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, and I bet money on this, would be protesting down at ICE for I ain't saying they would like it.
Right.
They wouldn't they would be protesting that we allowed people to sleep on our streets.
There you go. Yeah.
You understand? They would
like
be
a
like
humanitarian thing that we see every day.
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah.
We got somebody sleeping on my street.
Yeah.
What's going on? You're going to go and put these new sidewalks in, but then you got this guy, what are you going to do about it, city commissioner?
Yeah.
You understand? They would protest stuff like that as aggressive as the ICE. I'm not saying the ICE stuff isn't important.
Right.
The ICE stuff is not Portland. That's global. That's over there.
And it's also like, I talk about homelessness all the time on here. It's like, it's something that's been going on like as a hardcore issue for like 10 years at least in Portland. And how many people have you seen
back in the early 80s
overdosed and all?
But it's gotten worse. That's another thing too. There's a reason why it started getting worse in the mid 2000s. We've had this the whole time. We've had, as a friend of mine likes to call them, bums, the whole time.
Yeah.
But it never got like this. It started turning. One friend of mine said it started turning when Vera left. It started turning. And most people that I've talked to in politics have said that city council after Vera was never as effective as with Vera and before.
That's kind of, what I hear a lot. Sometime around there.
And
everyone kind of agrees. And I'm not trying to shade him too much, but like by the time Charlie Hales got in, it was kind of like, it's over. Like,
oh yeah.
Portland was kind of a lost cause.
No, you're right. And a lot of people felt it. It was just a different change in in leadership. And I tell people, I think what it was, I'm not pulling any names or nothing, but we forgot what an elected official is supposed to accomplish. You know what I'm talking about? We
Right.
forgot. We've got all these, they call special interests. Well, we've always had special interests, but they were always kind of, at bay. We have a lot more influence from outside of Portland, and we've got fewer people who are willing to stand up for Portland, going, "Hey, it's not that that's not it's like I said, it's about the ICE issue, the illegal immigrant issue.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an important issue, and I disagree with our current policy, like
Right,
90%
right.
of the country, but that's not a Portland issue. I'm not gonna trash my business community. I'm not going to make my community less livable like
Right.
these guys do, because I don't like Donald Trump. Guess what? I grew up in a community that didn't like Ronald Reagan.
Right.
How many times did Ronald Reagan come to Portland, Oregon?
Yeah.
Not often.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? I bet he only came here a couple of times.
Yeah.
The point is, the people we got around now, they don't care about Portland.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
You know?
It's like especially if you were to rank these issues, it's like you would think the community ones are at the top,
Exactly.
but it's kind of flipped at some point.
Exactly. Another problem, our bums in the past, our homeless people in the past, they were from Portland.
Right, right.
They had family here. They went to school here. They used to have jobs here. They fell in hard times and everything. Most of our homeless people are immigrants. They came here homeless.
Right. It's something I've heard. Yeah.
Oh, no, I've gone on ride-alongs.
Yeah.
And like I tell people on Facebook, you'd be surprised how many sex offenders are out there. And they may not be Oregon sex offenders. No, we got sex offenders from other states coming here.
I know that's a big thing. Like Oregon has like the highest.
We've got the
rate of
highest
that.
per capita. Are you ready for this? The highest per capita of convicted sex offenders. We're not talking about the ones that we know are doing it, haven't been convicted.
Right. These are all
Just
in the computer.
we know who you are.
Yeah.
You've been convicted.
Yeah.
That any other city in the United States, and some people have told me there's no country no city in Europe
Wow.
that can come close to the Portland market.
So it's pretty much the global leader almost.
We're the global leader. And the thing is, a lot of sex offenders like coming to Portland because our law enforcement is known to be passive.
Right.
I mean, you understand as far
It's like
as
a
how they
slap
deal
on
with
the
it.
wrist.
Slap on the well, if you like one guy, I was out with a retired police officer, and we asked the guy, he came up here from he went from Texas to San Diego to Portland, and he goes, in Texas, once you get on the list, cops are all over you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't do anything. If somebody 100 miles away gets molested, they come looking for you.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
There's a threat of their behavior or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He says, go to San Diego. They're not as bad as in Texas, but man, they like to just get in your stuff. We come to Portland, cops say hello.
Right.
And they walk by.
Right.
He literally said that, and he didn't know the guy I was with was a retired police officer. He didn't know. And
He's just talking, yeah.
He's just talking.
Yeah.
He's telling, the cops just say, hello. You have everything you need? Are you okay? Want a bottle of water?
Yeah.
This is a convicted rapist.
Damn.
You know what I'm talking about?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if he raped a child or a woman, but he's a sex offender. He's been convicted.
Right.
He's on the state of Texas, registration list. He's in Portland, Oregon, and he's living on our street.
Yeah.
And he's getting free food, free medical care,
For sure. Yeah.
free, and he's. I tell people, how in the world did we fall to this?
Yeah.
And I said, there's no way 40 years ago, Portland would have been so accommodating to sex offenders. No way.
Yeah.
As open-minded as we were,
there's a line somewhere.
There's a line.
Yeah.
Guys tend to not want their women and their family being molested.
Right.
That's always been a
The
no-no.
general rule.
That's generally no-no.
Yeah.
Even in a passive city like ours,
Yeah.
even the most passive guy who wouldn't never join the military, generally never fight. You touch any woman in his family, he's ready to scrap.
Right.
We're just different.
Yeah.
Today. And I tell people, and I bring that up on Facebook just to show them. I said, we got more women in government than we have ever had. And we've got more sex offenders.
That's true.
I said, and we've lost politicians. We've had politicians have their careers cratered because they gave another female politician a compliment. We're not talking about it.
Right.
or nothing.
Right.
Maybe they were a little crude, you know,
Yeah.
got a nice butt, you
Yeah,
know, whatever.
right, yeah.
Yeah, that's crude, but lost their career, got shunned. That same female politician will vote for a bill giving a child molester free food and free medical care.
I think it's a totally fair, valid point. Yeah.
I just tell people I grew up in Portland. There's no way Vera would have done that.
Yeah.
There's no way Gretchen
Right.
would have done that. None of the city commissioners would have done that.
There's a line of reasonableness, I think that, yeah.
Well, they would have, you know what they would have been worried about? The working poor.
Right.
They would have been worried about that family or that older person who's, fixed income or not making very much. What kind of services can we create, to help them? They'll talk about, we need to get more tents because these
Right.
people, it's going to be, the rainy season's
Yeah,
coming,
yeah.
But what about that single mother or single father or just, they're not even single, it's a family, but they can't afford the full cost of childcare.
Yeah.
We had leaders, before that was a big issue. What to do with latchkey kids that come out, home.
Yeah.
Both parents are at work.
That was like, when I was growing up, I had a single mom, and
Yeah,
come home and your older siblings watch you.
exactly. Yeah. We had leaders that thought about families like that,
Right.
and if you notice, they never talk about families like that. How do like right now we're in a downturn. Right now, we're in a downturn. This is great. The winter is over with and everything like that. But we had city commissioners and county commissioners that worried about how people are going to energize their home, be warm in the winter, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, like I said, guys, we just don't get that anymore. We don't see our government looking at providing services for the working poor. If you've got shelter, you live in a home, you got a car, they just assume you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
But you know what? That homeless sex offender that's over there across the street from that school,
we got to get him some more stuff.
He needs a tent.
Right.
And he needs some clothes, you know what I'm talking about?
Totally,
but the kids that are going to that school, what happens to them when they get out of school? Mom's at work, maybe she had to do a little overtime, maybe dad had to do a little overtime. There was an effort for a long time, to build a study, like a couple of I call them study halls. I forget what people call them, but they were places that were like a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club where kids could go after school.
Like an after school center or something.
And they would stay open to something like 9 or 10 or something.
Right.
So that parents...
Plenty of time for them to get off work.
They had food there. This is what they were trying to do. Haven't heard anybody talk about that in years?
Yeah,
when I say years, since Vera left.
Like decades.
Decades, But I remember that was a big deal for a little while. People were trying to figure out how to make this work,
right.
Do a partnership with the Portland Public Schools, and have some place so that working families could maximize their earning potential. Because otherwise, mom and dad can't work as many hours. Maybe they can't work as far away where their better paying job may be at.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? The city and the county was trying to find a way to fit into people's lives, the working poor.
Yeah.
That phrase right there. How often do you hear a modern day politician say, we got to do something for the working poor out here. We got people struggling.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, it's I was going to say a second ago too, like, I think I'm just shouting you out, but if anyone, I know folks with the mayor's team and in the city hall, if anyone wants to bring somebody like Fred in for housing expertise, they are looking for those kind of people. And I think like you have a really good insight into
a guy like
stuff.
me could never. No.
You're not volunteering yourself for that.
Well, no, it's not, I mean, I've always stepped up to help the city whenever they ask, but no, I'm too old school. I'm too direct.
You just think they wouldn't take your advice or something?
Well, there's a lot of political realities that go on with something like this. There's a lot of people making a lot of money off of this,
right?
And people would make money with me being there too, but maybe not as much, and maybe not the way that it's so easy to do. Maybe it
would kind of tear down that structure.
Right now, it's easy peasy. Yeah. I mean, the results suck. I mean, the results suck. I mean, what we've done with the homeless, and I piss off a lot of homeless advocates about this. homeless advocates should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, it just seems like the more money we put into it, the worse it gets. It seems like.
I keep, and you heard me say this on Facebook. I bring up about reparations. I'm not even sold that at this time that's the correct thing to do is give black people reparations.
Sure,
but
yeah.
the legitimate argument that people say about reparations is we can't afford it. Oh my God, it would break the bank.
Right.
Okay, since 2008, when I first ran for city council, we've spent somewhere near between county, government, the city, and state in the Portland market, somewhere in the area of around 15 to 17 billion. It
I was
depends
gonna
on
say
who you
it's got
talk
to
to.
be in the high billions.
It's a high billions.
Yeah.
We're not talking about millions,
Right.
billions.
Yeah.
Okay. The 724 million last year, that's basically just the city's part.
Right.
You know,
Then you got county, metro.
Yeah, you add everything up, it adds up over 2 billion. I posted a report about it. It just blew everybody away on my Facebook.
And there's all these figures, per individual.
That's
like
1 year.
70 grand.
That's like
a
one
year,
year, like 93 grand.
Yeah.
But that is what actually got. Well, I won't say got to them. It's worse. So what I'm getting to is this: we got 36,000 black people in Portland, and only about 20,000, 23,000 would qualify for reparations, right? Something in that area, right? We got only 10,000 homeless people.
And the cost for that.
And reparations won't cost us as much.
Right,
I mean,
right.
the high number that I've heard people talk about here in Portland is lower than what we're spending on 10,000. And I got to point this out. It's nearly 100% white people that are on our streets. We got very few minorities, very few Asians, very few Latinos, very few black people.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up because I've heard people who say the opposite of that, but a lot of people I talk to, and just if you look on the street, it's usually white dudes.
It's pretty much white. Well, who are the sex offenders in our country? People,
getting back to that,
I tell my friends, you would be surprised if you could go on a ride along and just watch the cops because they see somebody's not doing well, or maybe they've OD'd or whatever. They have to identify them. And of course, they're going to run their background. I said, ask a cop. How often do they come across, oh, he's from Tennessee. Oh, level 3 sex offender. Likes the kids under 8 years old. He's over here in our park.
It's pretty common.
Very common.
Yeah.
He's over here in our park.
Right.
With a tent that our county gave.
Right. Yeah.
Supplied
by.
He probably had breakfast this morning.
Right. Yeah.
all on the taxpayer's dime. Yeah. And that's what I'm telling people. He's eating that breakfast that morning, and I'm not faulting anybody for eating. I mean,
everyone's got to eat.
But what about free lunches in school for everybody?
Right.
Free breakfasts for all kids. How come we're not talking that?
Yeah. Well, then, and also
you see what I mean?
The point you just made. It's like there's a lot of conversation around food pantries, SNAP, this kind of thing. It kind of goes to what you were just saying. What about that? We
spend enough money on homeless to where we could take some of that money and have free lunches, free breakfasts for all kids in Portland Public School.
Yeah.
Just make it free.
Yeah.
Like they do in a lot of Western countries. Just make it free.
Yeah.
Right. No, we don't want to do that. We want to feed a child molester. Right. We want to feed the reason why we lock the doors at school. See, when I went to school in Portland, we didn't lock the doors.
Right.
Now
it is wild. I went to a
now you got to lock the doors.
I went to a high school, maybe a couple months ago for the first time. And it was like everything's locked up. You got to
be locked up.
Buzz in and talk to the person, and it's crazy.
You'd be surprised. They don't, because our journalists suck. You'd be surprised how often we've had children attacked in the Portland market over the last 30 years. Children taken out of school or approached. Probably approached more than taken.
Yeah.
But so it's good that they lock the doors now. But think about it. We got a community where we have to lock the doors. We have to lock our kids in school.
Public school.
Public school.
Yeah.
Now, there's other threats to kids and stuff like that. But part of it is, across the street, we got a potential sex offender who's got a tent.
And I'll put the headlines up. There was a couple big human trafficking stings this week, I think, and that's going on all the time. And it's a big part of this homeless culture, unfortunately.
Well, we're known nationwide. You got to remember, Portland is a very unique city, and it's been this way probably 100 years now. We're the largest big city on the West Coast, and always the most affordable.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So in other words, it's easier financially, economically to come and establish yourself in Portland. So we're
right.
always going to get young people who are going to notice and consider here, if not actually move here. Definitely cheaper than Seattle
Yeah,
and
it's kind of like
Tacoma.
when they're looking at the West Coast, it's like San Francisco, Seattle,
Yeah.
Portland's the affordable sweet
Well,
spot in there.
no, it's the most. Think about it. Seattle, Tacoma. Okay. Even Olympia is a little more expensive than
Mm,
Portland.
mm,
And that's not as big a market,
right,
right? But
right.
it's not cheap. And then you come to Portland, and Portland is definitely a lot more affordable. As expensive as it is, it's much more affordable. Our housing's cheaper. A lot of things are cheaper. And so, what's the next city? Big one. Oh, Sacramento.
Yeah,
Yeah, Sacramento is a lot more expensive than Portland, then San Francisco, then Los Angeles, and all of the cities. Name a city in Los Angeles market that's as big as Portland, that's as affordable as Portland is.
I don't think there's any.
Just
Yeah,
pick one. You know what I mean? Just pick
L.A. is yeah,
L.A. Once you get to L.A., it's all expensive.
right. Yeah,
Then you get down to San Diego, the biggest market on the West Coast, technically. Technically, I mean,
as
Los
far as
Angeles
housing, is that what you mean?
housing,
Yeah,
how much money runs through it. I mean, LA is big, but
yeah,
people underestimate the power of being so close to Latin America and all the
sure,
money
yeah.
and everything that flows
And
into
I don't
San
know why,
Diego.
for some reason, I think of it more of a coastal thing. They're both on the
They're
coast,
both
but
in the
yeah,
coast.
yeah.
They're both in the coast, and both big markets. I mean, in their own way. I mean, and I always look at them as equal. It
Mm,
depends on whether you're in banking or in real estate
sure,
or
yeah,
whatever, which one's bigger. But the thing is, we're talking about massive markets that are so much more expensive than Portland.
right.
So we're always going to attract new young blood. And like I tell people, this new young blood that's coming over the last 20 years, they're not committed to being Portlanders. They're not Portland people. Not
Yeah.
all of them.
Well, I'm
Not
saying
all of
I
them.
would say this too as kind of an old guy. I'm gonna be 40
Mm-hmm,
soon, but like I noticed this with Gen Z and younger people, like like because I still have friends that work in restaurants. Like there's just
mm-hmm.
jobs like that that these younger folks don't want to do, and I think it's like
Well, it's
I think that's part of this Portland thing of like there's a lot of younger folks like that
no,
who
it's hard money. You see, when I was growing up in Portland, I sound like an old man when I say that
yeah,
because I
yeah,
am. You could get a minimum wage job, and you could afford an apartment. You could afford your car and gas.
sure,
You could
yeah,
afford life,
yeah,
especially if you had a roommate. You know what I mean?
right. Then you
Um,
got some extra money.
then you got some extra money,
Yeah,
and then and it was much different. Now Gen Zers aren't as lucky; they have to work 4 times as hard. So that's why when they look at restaurants and stuff like that, um, if they could get a job at El Gaucho's and make 100 grand plus a year, yeah, they'd probably be into that.
right,
But
right.
there's very few hospitality jobs that afford you the opportunity, let alone to actually do it, to
Yeah,
do something like that.
yeah,
And they're not, they're smarter. They got access to the internet. They
right.
can, they're on calculators all the time. I'm sure they can go and work at a restaurant and work their butt off, and still go home and not be able to afford where they're
Right.
going.
And I think they also see,
Yeah,
they're on YouTube and this stuff all day and they see these people, influencers or whatever, making big money
and
and that's
yeah,
appealing.
it is
And it's a good
appealing.
way to make big money when,
Yeah. And,
you know,
and they're young. They don't know that 75% of those people at least are full of it. They're not making
right.
anywhere
And
near as
they'll make a couple $1,000s a month or something.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's just like OnlyFans. OnlyFans had whether they had like 30 million women on it or something like that, but
Yeah.
only like
It's like the top
the
1%.
no, it's less than
Or
1%.
yeah.
It was like 0.75% make more than 1 million a year.
Yeah.
But everybody pays attention
Yeah.
to the ones like, oh man, $1 million
Right.
a year.
Because I think outside of that, the other percentage make like $1,000 a month or something,
Exactly. That's exactly
Yeah.
like $1,000, which
Yeah.
isn't bad. It's passive income.
It's like a side gig.
It's like a side gig,
Yeah.
But no, that's what they're looking. They're looking at what I had and took for granted.
Totally.
Didn't know
Yeah.
any better. When I was in high school, you're gonna love this. I worked at a country club. I worked at the Columbia Edgewater Country Club all through
Oh,
high school,
were you like
and
a caddy or something?
oh,
Or
I did everything. Back in the old days when you worked at country clubs, it could still be that way now. I mean, I worked mainly with my grandfather in the locker room, so I shined shoes and stuff like
okay,
that.
yeah.
But
You're just everywhere doing.
anywhere they needed
Yeah,
you, they
yeah.
needed you to clean pots and pans in the kitchen,
Sure.
and you're in the kitchen. I've shagged balls. I've done caddy work,
Yeah, landscaping or whatever. Yeah,
landscape. And if you
Yeah.
want to know what it was like being working at a country club back in the old days, I tell people watch Caddyshack.
yeah.
If you've seen
Most people
Caddyshack,
probably think of that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's that movie is it's funny. Anyway, but what I'm getting to is
Well, and to be
we
fair to these young people, they also have like this looming AI. They're just like AI is just going to take all the jobs and all this.
and see that's another thing we
Yeah,
didn't have that. That's
right.
another thing they're
Yeah,
seeing in real time in their lifetime. Things go obsolete.
right.
See, that's another thing. We didn't have that. We were looking. I remember being 17 years old, sitting around with friends, and we're talking about, if we could make $1,000 a month, we could live so well.
Right.
You
You're
know,
set.
we're
Yeah.
set,
Yeah.
man. We know
Yeah.
we could live, great.
You get a car, all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
$1,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, to live like I lived off $1,000, right? And I made more than 1,000 when I was in high school. I did. Until my grandfather got sick, I definitely made more than 1,000. But what I'm getting to is you probably have to make 6 or 7,000 now.
Right.
To
To be almost like $100,000 a year. Something
exactly
like
to
that.
do
Yeah.
what I was doing as a teenager.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
And
Right.
and of course, these young people, they're not stupid. They can count. And I don't blame them to a degree. And that's one of the reasons why I talk like I do about the homeless issue and how politicians are. Think about it. They're not seeing any help for them for working hard.
Sure.
They're poor
Sure.
right now. Oh, but if I want to stick something in my arm, if I want to raise babies,
Yeah. Yeah.
my government is all down.
Yeah. And you know what's wild is like this is like before. This is like pre. I don't know. This is like probably like 2005. But when I moved up here, there's a lot of young people who were my age that kind of did that, and it was kind of this lifestyle of like I'm gonna hop trains. I'm just gonna live on the street.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. I knew some people who started doing heroin, but it wasn't like fentanyl like now.
But
But I
also,
could see how it's like an appealing thing of like I got no rent. I
hey,
got nothing.
that we've always had that. You'd be surprised how many significant Portlanders came here that way. My grandfather came here that way. He hopped on.
Sure,
He was
yeah,
a hobo.
yeah.
We had a lot of that. People get here, but they were able to establish themselves. They had the culture and the government. There were tools. Like I tell people, we can't do it anymore, but the old YMCA, a guy could come into Portland, and let's say in 1940. My grandfather came here in 35. So I'll use 35. Here's a good story. He came here in 35, June of 35, didn't have a place to stay. He hoboed here.
Yeah.
He went to, I think it was like 15 or 20 cents a day. He had a bed and he could take a shower
Is it the Y?
at the YMCA.
Yeah.
It was like something like 20 cents a day.
Yeah. And it's just
Even-
like they
even
have
back
everything you need.
You have everything you need.
Yeah.
And he was able to establish himself, meet his family. He didn't know where his family was out here. He found them.
Yeah.
Of course, after that, he was able to move into other accommodations. You see how this, but there was something here that you could latch onto.
Yeah. It's kind of like you can figure out a way to set roots here and become part of the community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't like only thing the government had for you was a tent.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And he was able to get work. He was able to connect with his family. He was able to start building a life here. Our government isn't focused on that like it used to be. Our community, because of that, because of the leaders we elect. I tell people, if you don't believe me, just go to the Oregon Historical Society and look at some of the speeches that our former leaders, city commissioners, mayors, county commissioners, state representatives. Listen to some of the speeches they've given and how they always were focusing on the community. And, and a lot of them would bring up the working poor.
Yeah.
That story I told you earlier about Gretchen. I mean, what she did for the working poor, should be talked about a lot. I've never seen in my lifetime an elected official in Portland, Oregon, stick their neck out for the common man and woman like I saw Gretchen do it. And she didn't have to do it. I mean, it was her responsibility. She was elected to do what she did. But how many people today would do that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Optional, and you're putting a lot of political capital out there probably to.
That thing could have blown up.
Yeah.
That thing could have blown up.
Yeah.
But she invested in Portland, in people. And these, I ain't saying they were perfect. I'm not even saying all the homeless people are bad people. I'm just saying, if you had a choice, you got this homeless population that's full of criminals, or you got this working poor population.
Mm.
They're not breaking laws. They're just trying to take care of their families. They're just trying to get from day to day to day.
Yeah.
Which one is more important for the city to invest in?
Yeah, and to me it makes a lot of sense because like you invest in that, you make that something that people gravitate to,
Correct.
pulls people out of the homeless thing,
Pulls them out of the homeless.
and then it helps the middle class and all that stuff.
Well,
You know?
why do you talk to a lot of longtime Portlanders? You'd be surprised how many of them were that
Yeah,
at one time.
right.
You know what I mean? Were that. They're different now. You know what I mean? The times passed and they've improved and stuff. But our community invested in them when they needed it.
Right.
You know,
it wasn't just to perpetuate this forever.
it wasn't to perpetuate it forever.
Yeah.
It was a cultural thing. And like I said, that's one of the reasons why a guy like me God, when people say make Portland weird, because every time you say that, there's some weirdo in Omaha or something. He says, I'm tired of getting punched in the face, for the wicked stuff that I do here. I'm going to go to Portland,
right,
where they will respect me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They will, be okay with me, being this threat to society.
Yeah.
And that's not what weird is. When like I tell people, I'm almost offended because when I think of the people who did things that were alternative, lived alternative lifestyles, were hippies, polymorous they weren't doing this for a cause for the world. They were doing this because they thought that was best for them and their family, their community, and everything. They weren't on a crusade to, I want people in Moscow to live exactly the way I do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I think there's a lot to that. That's a good point. The other thing I was going to ask you that you kind of brought up a little bit ago, I asked a lot of people this because I've had economists on here talk about this. Like you mentioned, we're kind of the city's
we're
kind
in a down
dipping.
cycle.
Yeah, and I asked everyone, like, in your opinion, like being this housing expert, the Metro Chamber says, their economist says we're in a recession, city recession.
No, yeah,
do you think we're in that?
We are in we're a recession. I agree. Everything I've heard, they're right, but it's different. We're in a cultural recession too. People are not paying attention to the fact that the young people who are moving to Portland today are not the young people who are moving here. Let's say in the year 2000, in the 1990s.
Yeah,
we had a lot of young people who came here to go to college, right? And they'd finish college and start their careers, or they already finished college,
right?
And they wanted to start their careers. And we still have some of that. What we have more of people getting out of high school, never going to college, and deciding to come to Portland because it's cheap to live here. So we're not attracting as skilled of people as we used to. And we're not percentage-wise having as many people go to our colleges as we used to. We still got a lot of people going to our colleges, but not at the population percentage that we used to have. So going forward 20 years, looking forward, is not looking as good as 20 years behind.
Absolutely.
Because we don't have the upward growth potential.
And also PPS, I point out that their enrollments projections just keep dropping.
Their enrollments are lower because families can't afford kids, so they're not having as many kids.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why we need to invest in the working poor. Another issue that's coming up is a lot of the people who are having kids don't trust our school system. They don't trust the leadership of our school district.
Yeah, I believe that.
And they don't want their kids subject to it. And people like to say, well, it's the conservative people that don't want their kids around.
I don't even think it's
not even that.
I think, I think post-COVID, people lost a lot of trust with these schools.
That's exactly what it is. I tell people, you can blame it on that homophobic family. Yeah, that's a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's an easy kind of
excuse. But no,
yeah.
if you talk to parents and aren't sending it, it's more than that.
Yeah.
I don't know all the issues. I'm not going to sit here and act like I do know all the issues, but I know it's not some sort of conservative, right turn.
Yeah.
It's
I don't even think it's necessarily about the curriculum like that.
Yeah.
There's something offended by whatever that is. But I think, like I said, post-COVID, a lot of parents probably just feel like this may not be the best place for my kids to spend their time.
And you see, that's been getting worse and worse. And we keep electing people on our our school. I got to tell you, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings.
High school here, right?
I went to high school here.
Yeah.
We, over the last 25 years, have elected, not all of them are this bad, but the worst elected officials in Portland history, probably. And we've had criminals, stone cold pimps, bootleggers.
Yeah. We had this whole mafia period in Portland.
Yeah. Well, the original city council was based on the 5 families of Portland.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Basically, we had
Yeah.
5 entities.
They just installed them up there.
And
yeah.
the reason why the mayor had the limitations in their power is they didn't want a tutu to copy. They didn't want one person being above everybody else.
Sure.
No, we've had mayors that were pimps. We've had police chiefs that were pimps. We've had stone cold killers that were on city council. You name
Damn,
name it, we've had it, and they were more effective. That's what I'm getting to.
Than today.
Than the ones we had today.
Right.
They did more for Portland. And we've got some good people that are elected. I'm not going to mention who I think they are, but we do. But they are in a fight every day because they're surrounded by, like I said, less than.
And why do you think that is? One thing I always tell people is like we've got to this with local elections to this point where like, first of all, there is a decent amount of money in it. Like people can fundraise a lot of money. But I think when it comes to filling in that bubble, like I have my ballot in here and I haven't filled it out yet, but people just want to fill that thing in and make it feel like they're saving the world by electing that person, even though they don't accomplish.
Well, a lot of us in media,
anything,
we don't have, and I like I said, I'll beat up the media because these guys aren't like the old guys. And I'm not saying the old guys are perfect, but they're basically co-opted by God knows which special interest or wealthy person. There's a lot of things that they should write about. They don't. There's a lot of things they should point out to the community. They don't. They go for clicks. They go for what they think is clicks, and they go for the money, the advertising money.
I think you're right about that because, I worked in even local TV, papers and TV, like they've got to this point where they're just desperate for whatever money they can get.
Exactly.
And they're going to be subject to whoever's, paying those bills.
No, you're
whether it's
correct.
ads or subscribers.
Well, that's why, on my Facebook, I
or...
post a lot of things from independent journalists. I tell people journalists have always been important to every municipality. That's why our founding fathers said the government shall never get in their way.
Right.
But they were totally comfortable with the public beating the hell out of a bad journalist. They left it up to the people. But if you study all of them, they all said journalism is important to democracy.
Right.
It's extremely important.
Yeah.
But the government can't put itself in a position of policing it. It's got to be done by the people. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The people who are reading it.
Can't have censorship like that from the government.
Exactly, because you need journalists to be.
Yeah. They're the fourth estate. They call.
They're the fourth estate.
To call bullshit basically on.
That's why I tell people if a journalist lies to you, if a journalist posts an article that you think is BS or whatever, you see him on the street. Their kid wants to come play with your kid. Send that kid home.
Yeah.
No, journalists have got to face consequences for letting us down, for breaking that trust, from going across that line. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, the way you're saying it, I totally agree in the sense that like you're saying to get us to the point where we are, where we have this really shitty elected group of people.
We need to be.
We got there because nobody called BS
exactly
at some point.
Well, in the old days, the Oregonian had up until '82, I think it was. They had the Oregon Journal, and they used to call each other out. They caught one making a mistake.
Like other journalists.
Early journalists. Like,
That's
you
cool.
were wrong about this. You notice no journalist in Portland calls any other journalist.
Right.
They tell some of the biggest absolute lies.
Yeah.
Right? Lies. Yeah. Right? I'm not going to get into the whole thing about the story, but a friend of mine got in an argument with a local journalist years ago, like 10 years ago. They were at an event. And they had too much of the liquor in them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Too much of the liquor. And they got in a fight. And my friend was so mad over this issue. He said to him, he says, I'm going to tell you right now. And whoever else has heard the story, you know who I'm talking about. Is that story truthful? Because if it's truthful, you're okay. If it's a lie, you're not going to make it to your car.
Damn.
Is it worth it? I'm going to let you right now tell me and everybody else whether or not it's truthful or not. Because if you lie, this is it. I'm going to prison. You're going to hell. Right?
That's wild. Yeah.
They're drunk off their ass.
Yeah.
Drunk.
Right.
Is this lie worth dying for? Is what he was saying to the journalist.
Right. Yeah.
I'll just say the journalist is still writing. You know, so you can
for a major.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I was telling people. They lie to us.
Right.
And we know, and we should not. We need to be able to trust these people. and it's more print media than it is what do you call it, television.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
But they flat out in our face lie to us. They lie by omission. They tell straight up lies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely notice, and sometimes on here I'll call out some of the omission stuff
Oh
because it
yeah,
is weird sometimes.
that's what happens the most. They don't tell you the whole story.
Right.
They'll tell you, a sliver.
Yeah, it's like, here's what we think's important. And since, now especially there's really only
Yeah.
a handful of these guys left.
Exactly.
They know that they're the authority as far as this goes. And
there's two major journalists that have gone on talks, and both have said this when asked, how do you know what's truthful? And both said this in different ways. So I'm kind of paraphrasing. If I publish it, it's the truth. I decide if it's truthful or not. And that's what the kids were asking. And the kids were saying, well, how do you verify that it's truthful?
Right, yeah.
They didn't say anything like, well, we get three verified, sources.
Yeah.
No, it's what I decide. If it sounds truthful to me, it's truthful.
Which just tells you that it's got to them. It's got to their ego. They have a real.
And these are among the most respected and successful journalists in our market. We didn't have this when I was growing up, and we probably didn't have it when you were growing up.
Yeah.
I ain't saying they were angels, but
there was a healthier system there and a lot of people to more balance. Because I think what you're saying about independent journalists, a lot of these official journalists see that as, beneath them. They see them as trash. And so that's one of the reasons why they're saying, I'm the truth.
Because they're not making as much money.
Right.
And they're not making as much money compared to the guys 30, 40 years ago. Yeah. But they look at independent. So that's why I support independent journalists, because you go on the internet, we see a lot more fruitful information these days from an independent journalist than we do even sometimes from our major papers.
And imagine if you didn't see some of that, and you wouldn't have a clear of a picture of what's going on.
Exactly.
Sometimes,
it's just like when I was running for office, and this happened each time I ran for city council. In 2008, when I ran, none of the papers asked me very much about Black issues. We had, all these gangs, we had all the stuff going on and education and stuff. But they did ask Nick Fish and Jim Madaw, some white guys,
about the Black issues.
About the Black issues. They didn't ask the Black candidates about any Black issues. It happened again in 2016. 2016, same thing. Didn't ask anything. And I was telling another guy the other day, because he was bringing this up with me. There was this event, this arts event. I forgot what organization it was. Arts Commission. They had this big event, and they only invited white people. And the Oregonian and Willamette Weekend didn't mention anything about that. They didn't talk about anything. And this is in a town that's struggling. It's been struggling for hundreds of years. For 100 years to try to be more and more diverse.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I tell people, our journalism community at this time, their values run counter to the community that they're publishing in. They're not like us.
Right.
And so many levels. They're just not like us. And, that's why one of the reasons why we're at where we're at. And that's one of the reasons why we've got the politicians we got.
Yeah.
Every piss poor politician we've had in the last 25 years has been endorsed by one of our newspapers.
Sure, yeah. No, I think it's a totally fair argument, because like you said, I think, for me, first of all, I know a lot of these people just from the TV side, and I know a lot of the print people. But for me, it's I only have two people in this whole system that I'm they're okay.
Most of the good,
and that's out of a couple hundred people.
We used to have a lot more. I don't know exactly what year, but about 15 years ago or so, the Oregonian and Willamette Week started getting rid of the good people. I've seen over the years some incredible journalists. People who care about the craft of being a journalist and understand what it means to be a journalist. They got a passion for it. Mm-hmm. You understand? That's probably why I'm the way that I am, and other people are in this town. We've seen the good stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
You
not.
remember that.
We remember
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and so you're looking at the eye of the devil right now, and you're like, man,
Right. That's not it.
that's
Yeah.
not it.
Yeah.
And it's just that's one of the reasons why we're where we're at.
Yeah.
There are people who we elect today that could not 30 years ago get elected. And it's not because they're not smart enough or whatever. No, the journalism community was more precise. They were different. They weren't angels. I don't want, when I talk like this, I don't want people to think, oh, they were perfect. No, they weren't angels. But
there's just more pressure on them from that. Because, one thing I called out recently was like, I always watch the Willamette Week endorsement videos that they do.
Yeah.
And I kind of make fun of them because, like, I have a high production thing here.
Yep.
They just set up like a video, like a old
They
thing.
meant to do it.
But, like, I was watching the recent ones and I just felt like they weren't really pressuring some of these incumbents, like, from a journalist.
Well, you gotta remember, they don't show you everybody, and they don't show you everything. They edit, and they don't. Many times they don't invite everybody.
That's true.
They invite.
They select the panel.
Now think about it.
Yeah.
The editor, he decides who people should think is credible.
Yeah.
See, in the old days, it would be everybody. They would at least, give everybody a shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They throw that shot out and see what came back. These guys these days, no. They decide within minutes of these people signing up to run for office whether or not they're going to get any attention.
Right.
You know what I mean? Get seen at all.
Yeah.
And they feel comfortable with that. I've argued with a couple of them about it, and I think that's stupid because then you get an incumbent who's no good. And we've had some pretty bad incumbents. All of us know that.
Yeah.
But they don't. The public doesn't get to learn about the people who are running against them. Now, this is where this is critical. This is one of several reasons why the better candidates don't appear. They see this. They're not stupid. They've got an aptitude of politics. They can. Why would somebody want to go into that environment, put themselves through all of this effort, and be disrespected like this by the system from the get-go? And then ultimately, because of that disrespect, you're not going to win because nobody's going to hear about you.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Things like that.
Yeah.
It's just...
It's like it's not set up to give you a fair shake at all.
Well, there's no such thing as a fairness doctrine in politics, but there should be an effort to give the public the best opportunity to learn. You understand?
Yeah, absolutely.
And to react.
Yeah.
Not treat the public like you can lead it around like a pig to slaughter, which is basically what it is.
Right.
If you look at the quality of the elected official we get, like I said, we got some good ones. They're not the majority. They're not.
Yeah.
But why do you think the bad ones keep winning? Name familiarity given to them by what? Free press given them by these journalists for God knows reasons. Could even be, hell, for all I know, these guys are having sex with each other.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But free press, very selective in what stories they go after and how deep they go after. Like I was telling people, city commissioners got in trouble once going to a restaurant back in, I think it was like around 1980 or 81. The bar tab, it was beers and stuff, was something like $30, $40, whatever. And that was relentless. The press was like,
right.
What are you spending
all over that?
What are you spending $40 of taxpayers' money? Well, you should have pulled that out of your pocket.
Yeah.
I forgot which city commissioner it was that pulled the money out of his pocket and paid it back. It wasn't very much.
Yeah.
We had these city commissioners take a vacation to Austria, and we know that was total bullshit.
Yeah, no, that
was total bullshit.
I had that question on here because I was going to ask, like, what do you think about this social housing thing, this Vienna trip, and
they can't. There's nothing that they learned over there that can really be applied meaningfully here.
Right.
They fund housing differently. They got different codes. You can't compare that market to here.
Yeah.
What journalist is still on their ass? They basically ripped the citizens off of what? 100,000? How much did that cost?
I think it was like $60K.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that we know of.
Yeah, that we know of. And they ripped us off. a journalist 30, 40 years ago, oh my God, that they would still be writing on that
For sure.
because that was straight up theft.
Yeah, and the fact that now that they're commissioned this study to do that, like you said, I agree with you of like transplanting something across the ocean in a European country with like a high tax rate doesn't make any sense.
Now this shows you the difference in commissioners. Gretchen Gafuri had a guy from Sweden come over and help give some design ideas. He flew here. We paid for his flight to here, and they put him up. I don't know if he stayed with a staffer or something, or got a hotel. But back then, let's say the city spent $3,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like the opposite of.
And he was here.
Yeah.
For like a week.
And somebody did, when this Vienna thing happened, somebody did ask one of those counselors, why don't you just call them and see what, you don't have to fly your whole staff over there.
Did you notice they didn't take any real estate people with them?
Yeah.
Nobody from the home builders.
Yeah.
They didn't take any mortgage bankers with them. They didn't take any top civil engineers with them. Get my meaning? They didn't take.
Absolutely.
There was a great big, Bud Clark took a bunch of people to Montreal, which is what the city of Portland is kind of based on. Our planning.
Oh, interesting. Okay. As far as street design.
Back in the 70s, the Portland plan veered toward Canadian planning, which is Montreal and Toronto, and they're based on Denmark. The most efficient city or efficient area of the Western world is Denmark. You go to Denmark, the whole thing is efficiency and urban living. And then the next on the Western world is Montreal and Toronto. I think Toronto's a little ahead of Montreal. And then, so he took a bunch of people there. I'm sure they spent a ton of money.
Yeah.
But look at who he took. He took like a couple of city commissioners. He took some real estate people. He took some planning people.
Right.
It was a concerted effort. Now, guess what? In Canada, the way they develop housing, I mean, everybody's got our differences. The way they develop housing, the way they fund housing, the way they build housing, is guess what? Very similar to what we do over here.
Okay.
Whereas Austria,
right,
totally different.
Yeah, it's completely different.
They got results with housing, but it's different. Even I tell people, you can't compare.
Yeah.
And plus, you got in Austria, a lot of the housing that they're developing, you can go online and look. Austria is an old country. Some of these houses are like 400, 500 years old.
1700s or something.
What you're looking at is remodeling something for the 60th time since it's existed.
Right.
And you're trying to compare that to complete redevelopment here in Portland.
Right.
No, we had city commissioners look us in our face and lie to us. They ripped us off. And
do you think it was just like they're taking a vacation kind of thing?
It was a vacation.
Yeah.
It was a vacation. Yeah. No, look, it's real heady and real perky. Not real perky. We call it privileged to be a city commissioner of a major city. We bounce, depending on what area you're looking at, between 20 and 22.
Yeah.
Of the 500 major cities in this country, right? So you're a city commissioner number 22. You get a lot of invites from everywhere around the world.
Yeah.
You get a lot of perky stuff. And I just think these guys, I don't know. I don't talk to them about it. They got an invite and said, I've always wanted to go to Austria. Right. I want to go to Austria. Yeah. And they piled on, you know, and I'm saying that's never, ever happened before. But I tell people in my lifetime, I can't think of it ever happening at this egregious level. Like I said, I know a lot of other junkets that are city commissioners and county commissioners, and usually they don't look like this one. You understand? And, like the one I told you with Bud Clark, there was even a bigger one in the 70s with Neil Goldschmidt. He took the who's who of Portland bureaucracy. You understand? We've got and I may not be right about this, but I think in this one I'm thinking about, they even took Bill Nato. The Nato family would know more than me, but my memory's correct. So he took
everybody important,
who could actually develop relationships, and build something.
These are the change makers.
He didn't bring like 5 or 6 city commissioners and their staffers. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they could live it up. They took, and we've all benefited. That's what I was telling everybody. That's why we know they're lying, because look at how they put this whole trip together. And look, well, we're going a little bit too far. The only thing I'm trying to say is our journalists let them off.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that.
Still-
Like there
still
was
let
there
them
was a there was a little bit of coverage, but it wasn't
So if they let
it
them
wasn't to my
if
satisfaction.
they let them
you
off
know?
on that,
Yeah.
what else are they letting them off on?
Yeah. Mhm.
And the thing is, like I said, that feeds into the choices that are being put in front of people. So I tell people, I'm not voting for anybody that had any endorsements from any newspaper.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying, because it is like I think a lot of people do that. They just put the ballot, they look at the endorsements, and they match them up. You know.
And you know what? You should be able to do that if you choose to.
Right.
You say, look, I work, I raise family.
I don't have time to look
Yeah.
into all these people.
And that's why newspapers started doing it
Yeah.
as a service.
Yeah.
And you could still say no. You could say, well,
Right, yeah.
but they gave you a baseline. I won't go to the point and say that you were never manipulated, but the goal wasn't manipulation. Now the process for endorsement from these newspapers, from all of them, is manipulation. It's all about manipulation. And there are people who are very credible candidates who will never ever get an endorsement from any of these papers ever. And that's why you hear me on Facebook all the time encouraging people to run anyway. You gotta push this system. You gotta break it,
Yeah.
or it's never going to get repaired. So there's a lot of people, and you've seen them on my Facebook. There are some people that posted stuff on my Facebook, and you're like, I don't agree with that guy, but I think he knows something.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
knows. He's not just pulling this rabbit out of a hat. There's something there.
For sure.
There's leaders
Yeah.
in this town. They're just, I won't say that. I don't like to use the word afraid, but they're looking at what's the best use of their time. They could go up against this, the White Walkers. You know what I mean? They can go up against the White Walkers, or they can keep going south.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And get
yeah.
away from the White Walkers. And we got a lot of people. The White Walkers are our journalist community, and not everybody wants to go and get on that wall. You know what I mean? Not everybody.
Totally, yeah.
And you can't you can't blame them.
Right.
And and we don't have it's funny. Another thing, I saw an old interview with what's his name? What do you call it? Tom McCall. He was governor of Oregon for a while, of course. And he used to say one of his enjoyable things to do was to talk with journalists, debate, argue, whatever. What was that?
Challenge them.
Challenge.
Yeah.
They was different.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you heard anybody locally say that? Local politicians scared to death of journalists because they could turn on them and just start lying on them like that, making stuff up. I posted something. This shocked a lot of people, even my friends who hate Donald Trump, like hate his guts. I did a report that showed that 1 in 3 articles written about him are fictitious, not just inaccurate,
just fabricated.
Absolutely fabricated.
Yeah. And
it blew everybody away. I mean, these are people who hate Donald Trump. And I ain't saying they don't have a good reason. I'm just saying they're like, what?
It's a
1 in 3 articles about Donald Trump are verified fictitious, like totally made up.
And I think that goes back to what you're saying too. This like clickbait culture we're in.
Exactly.
They just want that click, whether it's true or not.
How does that fictitious story affect the electorate? You understand?
Yeah.
I mean, there's enough to not like about Donald Trump where you don't have to just,
There's plenty of things.
Make something up.
Yeah.
But what if he's right about something?
Yeah.
And you've been lied to by the people that you're supposed to trust. And it's not good even with Oregon politicians. It's not as bad as it is. I was surprised. All of the Oregon politicians that I ran the report on, all of them had a percentage of absolutely, and this is from the major newspapers. I only studied the major newspapers.
Right.
Okay. Even they had a surprising number of fictitious stories. Tina Kotek, there's stories that have been written about her. Absolute bullshit. Absolute wrong. Not even like wrong in that they made a mistake.
Right.
They made it up.
It's misleading or
misleading totally.
Yeah.
And the thing is that affects all of us.
Sure. Yeah.
And how we make our decisions.
Yeah.
How we, who we support, what we don't support. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess I tell people the reason why I talk about this so much is we got a bunch of journalists. They don't care. They don't care the damage that their poor professionalism is inflicting on the people of Portland. And that wasn't what you and I grew up in.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
One thing I always tell people is like I'm glad that when I first started working in TV here, it was like the last heyday
Mhm.
where local TV was like, internet wasn't really
Correct.
the thing yet. People didn't have these smartphones and
Well, if a reporter, you can think of them, some of the reporters, if they got on a story, they got on a story.
mm-hmm.
They got on it. You know what I mean? They were in it.
Yeah.
You know, and that helped us all. That's what journalists are supposed to do.
Right.
You know, they're not supposed to lie to us. They're not supposed to manipulate us, mislead us.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell all my friends they do that often, and they do it to people I love, people I grew up with, people. You know, it's just like I was telling people when they were racist toward Bruce. You know, I said, of course I'm a black guy. I don't like racism, but you know what I really don't. I got some white friends who've done a lot in their lifetime to make things better. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's important to them. Diversity, human rights, respect,
Sure. Yeah.
these are values that they live by, that they do business by, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my journalists will spit all over that, throw a bunch of racism in front of them and call it good.
Throw that in the toilet.
Exactly. Yeah, call it good. So here I got, that comes to say their values run counter, to the population.
Yeah.
And that's why our homeless population is overfunded.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's a failure. If you notice, nobody's being held accountable. They've blown billions.
Yeah, and we just keep every year just sitting through it.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah. I mean, how come I'm not hearing about, our attorney general brags about suing Donald Trump. It's a big deal, sue a president, whatever. That's good that he's doing something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I disagree with him. How come he's not, digging into what's going on with the billions of dollars here?
That's a great point. Yeah.
No, that's what I mean.
Like it's part of his purview is supposed to find fraud in the state and
exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, in the old days, I'm not saying they were perfect back then. I can't imagine billions of dollars disappearing like this. And
right, and it's just a question mark. And
the old Hardy Myers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not like, where did it go? I mean,
right.
It was Hardy Myers that found Dominion Capital.
No, I think your kind of major point like totally makes sense to me because I was talking about this last episode of like why we get these people elected that just are like not delivering, and that makes sense that what you're trying to draw this line of journalism, and it doesn't get.
They are playing to the journalists. They're not playing to the people. That's why you don't see them in restaurants and bars that often. I tell people when I first came to Portland, I was only in Portland like 2 weeks, maybe 3, and I met Standish's.
Mm.
And there was a mayor and a couple of city commissioners eating burgers and drinking beer and hanging out. Well, I don't say hanging out, having discussions. I mean, I was a kid. Back then, kids were to be seen and not heard. So
right. You don't get to hang out with the adults.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm eating my cheeseburger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And drinking my Coke while the adults do the adulting.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these are city commissioners and a mayor in a dive bar. You know what I'm talking about?
It's just wild. Yeah.
Having burgers, talking Portland, talking politics. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Doesn't really see that anymore. They're up in Portland City Grill or something like that. Like
that's my point.
Fancy. Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
And I mean, the old city commissioners, they would go to places like, the Kingsman or Kelly's Olympian. I'm sure they went to Arlington, but they were
No, that's because like I was saying last week, I was saying like this council, at least that I was talking about, they're just so disconnected from like normal, regular people,
and it's intentional.
Yeah,
it's intentional. They live a life where they are disconnected.
Yeah, and you're saying they're kind of up on this upper echelon with these journalists.
Correct.
Same kind of level of like we're up here.
No,
regular people down here.
No, that's exactly what happened. What happened. I tell people that I remember Bud Clark, Bud Clark used to own, the Goose Hollow and everything like that. But everybody knows the different bars and restaurants he would go to. You see him and you see his wife. Same thing with Charles Jordan. Same thing with Mildred Schwab. You know what I mean? Same thing with all of our city commissioners. I don't say everybody knew, but it was known in general where you might see them. You know what I mean?
Because they're hanging out these common places.
I mean, they were nice places, for Portland and everything like that. But they were out and about.
Right.
Even the way that they approach. I tell people, Eric Sten used to ride the bus to work and stuff, and he didn't tell nobody. He just did it.
Yeah.
He bought a home over in North Portland. I sold it to him back in 1992 over in North Commercial Street. Didn't didn't tell anybody. He just did it. They were just different, and
Right.
I think it started changing somewhere in the mid early 2000s, somewhere around the time Vera left.
Yeah, it's something I talk about on here. I bring up their pay a lot because they get paid like 140 grand,
Yeah,
which is a lot for I think what they do. I talk to city councilors from outside of Portland who like
yeah.
get no money, like they're just a part of the community, and they
Well,
just
for not for a major city, I tell
I'm
people,
saying like small
yeah,
cities around
yeah.
Portland. Yeah,
No, for a major city I don't know with the new system. I really don't.
yeah,
How busy they are. I don't know because they're not executives anymore. They're just legislators.
right,
The old city commissioners, it was almost like becoming president. Once you basically got elected, even before you were sworn in, you're running with the devil. It
yeah,
was intense. You
yeah.
ask anybody that's ever worked for a city commissioner, busy all the. I don't know how busy these guys are.
Yeah, well, one thing I always say is they all have pretty sizable staffs. Like
Hmm.
they've got like 5 people helping them out. I'm not. I agree. Like they probably are busy. I just think that they're
My
on this anointed kind of
my
plane.
suspicion is they're legislators.
Yeah.
They're not executives. See, the old city council, they had three roles that made them the most powerful politicians in the
Right.
state.
Right.
They were legislators. They had judicial powers. They literally had judicial powers, and they had executive powers.
Right. They're
So
running the bureaus. And,
yeah,
yeah.
and so all three were running simultaneously. So they were busy
Yeah.
all the time, and it was even worse if you became mayor. You were very busy. So I think the compensation back then was absolutely worth it. But I don't know how busy these guys are.
Right. No, I think it's a
And
good point because I
and
think a lot of their time gets sucked up to right now budget when they do the budgets,
well,
and then any policy that they,
yeah,
it's like a third of what they were doing before.
it's literally, I was going to say,
Yeah.
it's a third of what they were doing before,
Yeah.
and they're more focused. Their staff is more focused. I don't know how big their staffs are, but I've heard every number between 5 to 20, and it just cracks me up. I tell everybody, it wasn't until it was like the early 70s that a city commissioner had a staff more than 3 people. Most city
Right.
commissioners only had 3 people, and one of them was a receptionist.
Hmm.
They didn't
Right.
have
Yeah.
very many,
Yeah.
people on their staff. But then, God, I don't know
It's just a lot. Yeah.
a legislator. I mean, a legislator
Yeah.
needs a staff of 5 or 10.
I know. Yeah. That's
mean,
kind of what I think. And it's also like,
what are those
I
people
think
doing?
each of their offices gets like 1.5 million budget per year
Yeah.
for whatever they want to spend staff or what. But that's just a lot to me.
No, it is a lot. No, I mean, we made that decision. I mean, I didn't vote for the change, but
part of the charter.
it's part of the charter.
Yeah.
We increased our government costs by, just to operate our government. This new way, something like 80%.
Yeah.
We increased
a big
our costs
increase. Yeah.
just to have this new government. I mean, our old government was much cheaper to operate
Yeah.
than the current government. And let's see. I mean, it's too early to see if we're going to get what we paid for, but I tell people I'm giving everybody one term before I start really
Okay.
really criticizing them. But
you got more grace than I do.
I'm missing the old ways,
Yeah.
because they're just not as decisive.
Yeah.
Much more bickering, and this whole thing of the peacock stuff. This is stupid.
Yeah.
This.
Well, it's kind of like you said earlier when we first started talking. Like I think at least some of the older commissioners that I was familiar with, they would disagree, but they at least would be like, "Hey, let's compromise."
No,
on
they,
something,
no, they
you
would.
know?
They would. And a lot of them disliked each other. I mean, one of my favorite stories that Bud Clark told me was in '85. His first commission meeting as mayor, and it was holy war. It was, and these are some of the most respected city commissioners of the last 50 years were on city council then.
Yeah.
And I forget what the issue was, but they were going at it, cussing and threatening to kick each other's behind and
Right.
everything. And and he says about 2 weeks later, we had our first Portland Cable Access. Portland Cable Access started filming and we knew it. He says that first meeting, it's somewhere out there. I know there's a copy of it. There was no cussing.
Is it all tidied up?
All tidied up. People started,
wearing
dressing a little bit better. But as soon as the cameras went off, it was
started
like
going at it
was
again.
like,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, and that's normal. I tell
Yeah.
people when I hear about city commissioners arguing with each other or whatever, that's normal. That goes with it. But what I don't like is how they put together policy a lot of times. And this peacock thing is, it, it's an insult to Portland. But look at who's on the peacock. If my memory is correct, none of them are from Portland. They've moved here in the last 10 years.
I think that's a fair point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're not here.
That's something I've said before is like a lot, because I remember for me, like 2019 was like a big change for the city in the wrong direction. And a lot of those folks don't remember that time in Portland pre-2019.
Well, you went to school here, right?
Well, no, I moved here when I was like 19.
19. So you came here just after.
I did go to college a little bit.
You went to college, but you've seen this happen. In Portland, when we first meet people and they say you're from Portland, we go, what school are you from?
Yeah.
What high school, what college?
Right.
Some will even go to elementary school. What elementary school did you go
to?
Yeah. And the reason why Portlanders do that is it's kind of like a handshake. It's like saying, okay, we're from the same, same area.
Yeah.
There's a loyalty there. Doesn't mean you're going to agree on everything, but it means everybody is expecting to we're on the same path, different lane.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We elect a lot of people who are not even on our same path. They're not loyal to Portland outside that they've got an opportunity to participate, an opportunity. That's why you hear me sometimes tell some politicians on my Facebook, you need to go back to your hometown. You need to go back where you're from and do what you're doing here over there and see how, if this is such a good idea for Portland, why don't you go on where your mom and dad live?
Right.
You know what I mean? Go where your mom and dad and, your first date, who you took to prom, go where they live.
See how that policy works.
And see how that policy works over there. Yeah. You're coming over here and dropping this on me. Yeah. And then another thing I'd like to point out to people, how many of our city commissioners who aren't from here, as soon as they're off city council, they're not even in Oregon anymore. They're gone.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'd noticed that with some of our old mayors too, and I don't know that they're gone, but it's just like they just are nowhere in the public eye. Correct. I'll say that.
I still saw Vera Katz after she was no longer. I still saw Bud Clark. I still saw all the mayors after they left. Yeah. I got to share the story with Vera. The last time I had coffee with Vera, we were at this coffee shop next to PSU. Vera's like 5 feet tall.
Really? Okay.
And by this time, she's using a walker, right? And this kid, he's just a, college kid. I don't know. He was young, maybe 19 or 20. He's in a hurry. He accidentally cuts in front of her. He's like taller than me. He's like 6'3", 6'4", big old kid. Vera Katz grabbed that man's arm, said, "You cut in front of me." Now, he has no idea this is the former mayor of Portland,
right?
But he sees this old, frail, 5-foot woman. I mean, she was giving him the business, and he was apologizing. He says, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to. I didn't see you. You need to look." I mean, and I was thinking, how many times I've seen Vera when she was mayor do the same thing, call someone out.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm talking about?
Same firiness.
Same firiness. Yeah. She didn't care. This guy is tall as a mountain to her. He's a young kid, and he was nothing but respectful, other than he cut in front of her.
Yeah.
But a lot of people in her condition, her age, they would not.
Right. They don't have that energy.
They don't have it. And I remember saying, I said, Mayor Katz, you could still run the city if you wanted to today. She says, she says, people say that to me all the time.
It sounds like she had the energy to do it. Yeah.
I think mentally she probably did.
Right.
I think mentally and that's why you hear me talk about these different people, on Facebook, because I think what's happened is we've forgotten not just the contribution of these people, but what an effective elected official look like.
I would agree with that.
And we don't always agree with them.
Yeah.
And they're not always nice. I mean, most of them are nice. I would consider very nice in her way.
Yeah.
I consider all of them. I mean, all of them have their rough edges. I mean, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I say, unfortunately, I rubbed up against a few rough edges of city commissioners and mayors, not intentionally. I know what that feeling's like.
Yeah.
And no, and like I said, it's because all of them cared about Portland. Portland was their hometown. Vera was born in New York. No, she was born in Germany. She moved to New York to get away from the Nazis, but she came to Portland in the '60s. And her and I think Vera what's his name? Neil Goldschmidt, Earl Blumenauer, I think. They all got on the effort to stop the Mount Hood Freeway.
Mm,
And that's what started their political career in Portland.
interesting.
And all of them were born elsewhere. But look at what they've done to Portland.
Right.
You
It's
understand?
kind of like you're saying, yeah, you just completely committed to like helping the community, not these outside issues.
All these things I mentioned, will anybody say that they weren't good for Portland? You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you agree with them.
Right.
Doesn't mean, I wish they had done this, they
Yeah.
should have done that. But still, you can't look and say, oh, yeah, Earl really screwed up Portland.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
he really didn't give a damn.
Right.
How many people say that?
No, nobody. Yeah. I was gonna say I've seen Earl recently, and I know he's had like brain surgery or something, but he's still committed to the city.
And that's what I mean. Look at the group that we got right now.
Yeah.
How can you say that?
Who's gonna be able to say that?
Who's going to be able to say that? You know what I'm talking about?
Even 10 years. From now.
Even 10 years. Hell, even now.
Yeah.
How many can you say in the last whatever amount of time they've been, the short time they've been in office? You can say, oh my God, I kind of disagree with this person, but I get where they're going. I get what they're doing.
You just don't have that.
And it fits the values. He says something too. You can have the same values. Smart people, intelligent people who have compassion can disagree, but want the same outcome, are going for the same. How many times do you look at these people and you're like, they're not, what's the outcome on this? Where's the win for me or the city, on this?
It's a great, I think a lot of their policies that people end up asking those questions.
And the thing is,
what's going on?
Like I said, we grew up in a time when we didn't do that.
Right.
Not as much, not like this. It's like, man, almost anything you hear from these people, it's like you're waiting for that punch in the face.
Right.
And where's the punch?
Right.
It's coming.
Well, I was going to mention too, you mentioned earlier, like they're never looking out for the working people. Like we just passed this huge transfer utility tax that basically everyone's going to get.
Yeah.
Households, apartments.
It's going to raise.
And so I just thought of that. I was like, that's just another thing that.
It's going to raise rents.
It's like they'll, in the same sentence, they'll talk about, hey, we care about people's finances,
but we're going to raise your rent.
And we're worried about people becoming homeless, but then we're going to add this new thing.
But we're going to raise your rent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, that's why I laugh. Like on Facebook, people were talking about our utility costs, how much it's gone up, and it's going to go up over the next 10 years. All of our utility bills, including our water, is going to go up double.
Yeah. That new Bull Run.
Yeah. It's going to double, right? So I was like, well, the old days, what Portland would have done is said, we got to take the profit out of our public utilities, and we need a PUD. I said, that's what old Portland would have done. New Portland's too corporate. No, they're not going to do that. I said, there is no way you could ever get, because the moment you tried to make a public utility district, if Portland right now had a public utility district, I did a report on it, right? Over the next 20 years, rates would only have to go up 3%.
Wow.
Right?
Which is like, everyone in Portland, I'm sure if you're listening, you're used to every year it's like a 40% increase.
We're talking about 3% from where it is right now over the next 20 years. And this is what would happen. The report said what the PUD should do is not lower anybody's rates. Keep it exactly where it's at. Use the extra money, invest in green energy, invest in the environment, and over the next 20 years, they'll only adjusted for inflation, a rate increase of about 3%.
Okay. I got a bunch of these funny questions. Unless there's like anything else that's like on your mind, that you want to share before I have a bunch of like stupid food questions I always ask people.
Okay. Well, before I get there, I want to tell everybody about the importance of families working together to buy housing together.
Yeah.
We've got a housing shortage. You heard me say this on Facebook. It's completely created. I'm a Democrat, but it's completely created by Democrats in Portland, in Oregon. We've got a bunch of nincompoops that have just made this, it shouldn't be this way. Not in Oregon. And screw the urban growth boundary. When I say screw it, I'm fine with it. We've got smart people who had the ideas of how to manage it for years.
Yeah.
For
decades,
years.
Right?
For decades.
Yeah.
They're not listened to anymore. You understand? They're just not. There's things that can be done within the urban growth boundary that could alleviate this. Pay attention to what people are talking about when they're talking about housing issues, and families need to work together. Family and friends need to work together to buy housing together, because the population, if you just look at the projections of where the population of Portland is going to be in 2040, let alone 2060, and understanding that we're right now about 15 to 16 years behind in housing. In other words, if we started building the appropriate amount of housing today, it would take us nearly 20 years just to get to where we should be today. You see what I'm talking
Get to
about?
that level of stock inventory.
Families have to take housing more seriously than I'm a Gen Xer, kind of a boomer. I was born 2 weeks before at the very tail end of the cutoff, but it's different from my generation.
Right.
And nothing that my mom and dad and nothing. You can't compare what our young people are facing today,
Yeah.
and what our children that are literally being born today are going to be walking into. It is so bad. We know it's going to suck for that baby that was born yesterday.
Right.
We already
and
know
it's
that.
something I always tell people too. Is like I rent this place. I've never owned that. I'm a millennial, and a lot of millennials have had this their whole life. Where they're like, I'm never going to own a home. It's just an uphill battle. But I agree with what you're saying. It's just people, they start to lose confidence in that, and then they go, well, nobody should own property. Is kind of what
and they get that way for good reason.
Yeah,
they get that way for good reason. We used to have so much housing stock. It's such a stable housing stock. When I first got into real estate in 1988, there were a lot of vacant homes because we had gone through the recession. But I came across people who had rented houses for 30 years. They raised their families in a house. They didn't own it; they rented it. I think it's better for them to own it. But the thing is, it shows the affordability. It was affordable. It was affordable, and that's what kept them in that house. Why go buy when it was so affordable?
Sure. Yeah.
And if they didn't want to stay there, they needed a bigger house. What did they do? They went and rented a bigger house. They had choices.
Yeah.
The population had choices, and that's something. And that's why I tell people, I'm not trying to throw my party under the bus. But we got to clean our own house. It's Democrats that did this.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I've been a registered Democrat my whole life, and I'm like, there's just a lot of like, I think, lack of understanding of housing to begin with in that party, but also like a lot of regulation that just overlaps, doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
And it doesn't allow like housing to be built very easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or affordably. I
Right,
mean, like I say on my Facebook, everybody who builds a house wants to get paid.
Yeah.
The builder, the guy actually builds it,
Right.
he wants to get paid.
Yeah.
The people who sell the supplies, they want to get
Right.
paid.
There's a piece for everybody.
The insurance people that insure, the workman's comp
Yeah.
insurance. Oh, the city person that goes and does the inspection. I said, everybody. So when our policies increase cost.
Yeah. It's like, I was telling you I had Noah on here.
Yep.
A friendly competitor of yours. He pointed out in Oregon, it's like 30% of a new build is Oregon regulation.
Yeah. Well, it can get worse. He's right.
Yeah.
One, I want to tell you he's right. There's two ways that our city, our liberals, screw us over. One is no big banks fund housing unless it's a massive 1,000-unit apartment complex or a big building in the Pearl District. You see a house being built, that's hard money.
Yeah.
Okay, because banks will not go there. They'll do the final loan. They're not going to do the construction loan.
Yeah.
So with that said, the interest rate's high, and it starts the moment you borrow the money, even though you haven't spent it yet. So, right now it's like 15 to 20%, depending on who you work with. I mean, some builders are going to get a little cheaper,
which is a lot. It's like a credit card rate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's going to cost $500,000 to build a house. So you go out and borrow $500,000, and it takes a year and a half. A year and a half to get permits, and you're paying interest on $500,000 that you haven't even spent yet. You understand?
Yeah, that's what.
And then you get 6 months depends on the type of house, where it's at.
Yeah.
It could take 6 months to a year to build a house. So a year and a half doing nothing but paying interest. Another year, 6 months to a year building. So you got 2.5 years, 2 to 2.5 years of what? Interest
payments.
Just on this development.
Right.
And it's at something high, everybody can do the math, let's say the low end for conversation's sake, 15%
Yeah.
on $500,000. It was like 50 grand by the
Right,
time the
right,
house
yeah.
is completed.
Yeah.
Plus, then you've got the permit fees,
Mhm.
which can range anywhere between, let's say, 50,000 to 120, 130,000 bucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Just to get this thing.
so you're now
Yeah.
into it, you're now into it 150 to 200 grand.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say for conversation, 100,000 to 150 grand. And you haven't even started digging a hole yet.
Yeah.
You haven't put the foundation
And it's
in.
like, I harp on this a lot too, because it's like people listen or look at this and think, oh, there's just a couple guys complaining about taxes and stuff. But it's like, I'm just trying to get people housed.
Yeah.
Like, let's build more inventory.
Well, the thing is that 150,000 is on top of what? Land cost?
Right.
And on top of what cost? Material cost. And then you got labor cost. There's other costs.
Yeah.
But that 150,000 is on top of, and everybody wants to get paid.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, who pays that bill? The end user, either the buyer or ultimately the renter.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? Everybody's going to get paid. And we don't have leadership that is cognizant of this.
Mm-hmm.
What they're more upset about is how much money the builder's making. The average builder, makes about 25, maybe 30% on a house. So if you see a house for $1 million, they make 300 grand. But they have this thing called capital gains, and it's wicked. And they're going in at the lowest possible number. So in other words, they bought it for, let's say, 200 grand. They've done all the investing and everything, blah, blah, blah. Now they got $1 million. What do you think their taxes are like? So
Right.
half of that 300 grand is taxes between the state and the federal government.
Right.
And trust me, they show up.
Yeah.
The tax guy shows up.
Yeah.
If you got a builder that's been building more than 1 or 2 houses, trust me, he's paying his taxes.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't pay his taxes, the IRS and the Oregon Internal Revenue, they put a tent in his yard. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
I mean, I've seen it.
Yeah,
I've seen the IRS walk into a builder's place like,
They're
hey,
not going to let that go.
they show me the money.
Right.
So he worked for 2 years, maybe 3. He has this organization. He's got employees, and he's making 150 grand off a house. That's if he sells it for $1 million. And I got people downtown who aren't from here who think that's a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money if you got to keep it all.
Right.
If you got to keep it all, yes.
If there wasn't this tax net waiting for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a builder builds 10 houses and makes 1.5 million. Okay, he's got employees, he's got employee taxes, he's got leases, rent, certificates.
Right, yeah.
So how much of that 1.5 million does he get to put in his bank account? He might get lucky and put about 300 or 400 grand. That's not bad for how much work and how much risk. He made 300 grand. He provided 20 or 30 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Get my meaning?
Yeah.
What should a builder make? Should he make 80 grand a year after spending all of this risk and all this money?
Yeah.
And no, the type of people we get coming in our government, they don't think like that. They think, oh my God, he made 300 grand or 400 grand last year.
Yeah, they just put this blanket evil developers.
But you know what? They will pay the office of a diversity woman. They'll pay her 250 grand.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I seen that just recently.
Yeah. She's getting 250 grand.
Yeah.
And the thing is, how many people does she employ? How much risk is she taking? You understand? Because think about it. I've seen it happen. If the market changes, who is the investors coming to get their money back from?
Yeah.
They're coming to that builder. And the thing is, we used to have leaders that understood the risk these guys are taking. And you need these people to take this risk to create your housing stock.
Yeah.
The government can't take away all the risk. That's not their job to take away all the risk. But they certainly shouldn't increase it.
Yes.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't think it's government's job to bail out every business person, including a builder.
Yeah.
But at the same respect, don't make it more expensive.
Right. And
make it harder.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying is totally true. Like the people just, at least the electeds right now, totally do not understand the level of risk involved with that. No. Right. Like, and it's like,
don't care.
That's what we need to have a pipeline to housing supply.
There's a reason why Wells Fargo doesn't fund infill in any place, especially Portland. There is a reason why Chase and U.S. Bank and Bank of America, you don't see their signs up on these houses that are being built. There's a reason for it. They're not interested.
Right.
It's too risky. They're not going to go there. They won't. They'll do
Yeah.
the permanent financing. You know, when somebody buys it, they'll do that. They're happy to do that, but they will not do the construction financing. That's left up to hard money lenders. And
you would say that's because I know the Portland CFO. I've clipped this once from a city council meeting. Said that, you know, Portland still has these major reputational issues.
we do.
Is that what you would say? Why they don't?
Some of our most accomplished, some of our most important financiers of housing in Portland have left the building. They refuse to even consider a project in Portland. Matter of fact, if it has a Portland address on it, it's an automatic
Right.
no.
Yeah.
Automatic no.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you say the numbers, they don't believe it.
I know a company that's like that. That's, I don't know, within an hour of Portland, and I've heard them say that, like, we just don't deal with Portland.
You'd be surprised. I could name. I mean, I'm not going to, because they're good people, and they know their business. One is a third generation. They've been building housing in Portland 3 generations. You understand? They're old Swedes. You know what I'm talking about? Their family came over here. They're Swedish. They've been building houses in Portland or financing houses in Portland for decades.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing, right? This is their home.
Yeah.
This is their hometown.
Yeah.
They won't touch it.
They're just like, we're out.
We are not financing or building anything. They'll go to other markets. They'll go to Arizona. They'll go to Cottage Grove.
Right.
You know what I mean? They'll go to other places in Oregon. They'll go to the coast. If it has a Portland address on it, they're done. And this family collectively, the ones living and dead, could have, for all I know, I don't know how much business they've done. They could have financed 1,000 and built 1,000 homes in Portland over the decades, and they won't touch it.
Right. What does that tell you?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Yeah.
When our electeds say, well, we need to build more housing, we need to make it more affordable, but the most important people, the most skilled people, the most experienced people, they don't have coming. You know, they're in the room with strangers.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I hear these electeds all the time saying, we need to build more, we got to do it.
Yeah.
But they won't face that question. You know.
Who's building?
Right.
I mean, I
They
asked
won't face the question of why aren't they building?
Who's building? And what can you do to attract these people back?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like these guys have gone and jumped into the river and killed themselves. They're still around. They're still doing housing.
Yeah.
They're just not doing it here.
Right.
So if I was mayor, I would say, how can I get them to build in my city? What neat changes need to be made? And, you know, I mean, he's not a king. He can't do it alone. But what agenda is he going to, work on that's going to bring these people back? Because you need these people. You need their money. Everybody needs their money, but you need their experience, their knowledge, their connections,
and ability to produce these houses.
To produce these houses.
Yeah.
You need that community.
Right.
It's not just one thing. And you know what? Like I told people, if a builder started building houses in Portland and became a billionaire, so what? If we got what we want, if we got affordable housing and enough spread. Right now, we're building way too many single family and studios. I mean, I like single family. I mean, I say single family, one bedroom, and studios. Building way too many of those.
Right.
We need more 3, 4, and 5 bedroom opportunities. And people say 5 bedroom. I say, yeah, because we got a lot of people who are moving in together with their parents and stuff.
It's true.
We got kids that are staying longer, of course, but a big one is we got this huge population of old people. And a lot of times people need space enough for them to come in. And then you got the big one. A lot of people are working from home.
Right.
You need more space.
Right.
So if you got a family and you work from home, a 2-bedroom ain't going to cut it. It ain't going to cut it.
Yeah.
So what is a 1-bedroom to you? And what is a studio to you?
No, I think you're totally right. Yeah. Because like even when I had apartments here and I had a ton of roommates, it was hard to find a 3-bedroom.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just 1 and 2 studios.
The city makes it very difficult to
produce that level.
To produce that level financially. They make it very difficult. And I could tell people, I'm not anti. I'm a Democrat. I'm saying this because the only way this is going to be fixed is if other people who vote Democrat, like you and I, say this.
You got to get on board.
Get on board.
Yeah.
Because if the Democrats don't fix this, who's going to?
Right.
And we're the ones. I say we as as a persuasion, political persuasion. We're the ones that created this.
Okay. I was gonna do this real mug plug real quick because I put that mug out for you. These are the first time I ever got these, so you can take that home.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, I'll just hold it up for a second, I guess. Yeah, there you go. Or just for the camera. Yeah.
I remember when I first got my first mug in real estate, I was very happy too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go through some of these funny questions real quick before we wrap it up here. Let's see. Do you have an animal or creature you're most afraid of?
My ex-wife. She's not allowed to be around me. Woman's crazy.
Okay. I like that. Do you have a dream car or any kind of vehicle?
Oh, that's tough. There's a lot of dream cars. I think if
could be a plane or something like that.
I don't know. Oh God, no. Well, hold it. It was a car until I'd love to own a Vision Jet.
Vision Jet?
That's
I don't even know.
Private jet's a badass.
Okay, I'll
jet.
Put a photo of it up.
You should look it up. It's a badass jet.
Okay.
And yeah, Vision Jet.
I could see you in that thing.
Yeah, that would be bad. It's an awesome private plane. Awesome. Only thing I don't like about it doesn't have a toilet in it, but you know.
You live without that. Yeah.
I'll bring a bottle. But it's a badass jet.
Okay.
If I had the coin, I would definitely get one.
Okay. I always ask people, like, do you have a good meal or just a local business you want to shout out in Portland? Is there something that do you have a good...
Hey, my favorite sushi bar over on North Denver Street, Sushi One. Love the place.
Okay.
And
I love sushi.
Yeah, Sushi One is what's special to me about that. That's the best, in my opinion, sushi bar in North Portland that's ever been. I remember there was a time there was no sushi places like that. There was none. And I mean, we got some good sushi places in North Portland now, North and Northeast Portland. But I really like this. It's family owned. I really like it. So yeah, Sushi One.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Let's see. Let me do a couple more here.
Yeah, they're over in Denver, just off of Rosa Parks.
Okay. I like a lot of junk food. I don't know if you're gonna like this, but I always ask sometimes, like, do you have a favorite fast food?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm more of a Wendy's guy.
I just had Carl's Jr. a couple days ago.
Yeah, I like Carl's Jr., but I'm more of a Wendy's guy.
Wendy's is good. They still got the baked potato.
Yeah,
which is like rare in fast food.
Yeah, I mean, if in a pinch, I'll do McDonald's, but that's very rare.
Okay.
And of course, Popeyes.
Hell yeah.
I love Popeyes.
I've brought it up on here like 2 or 3 times, but Popeyes does a Cajun turkey for Thanksgiving. And I've always wanted to get one of those. You can
you got to order it early. They run out quick.
Have you had them?
No, I've never had them. I've tried to get them, but you got to get them quick.
Yeah, I've never tried them,
but everybody I know has gotten one, loved it.
Okay, loved it. I want to try one of those. Yeah, I guess what's the best place for people to find you? Like your Facebook? What's the best?
Best place is Facebook, of course. VanportOregon.com. You can find me, but best place is Facebook. I got a very active Facebook.
Yeah.
I just tell everybody to when you come to my Facebook, just understand I'm not trying to. I don't have any access to grind against anybody or anything. I just want people to think. So when you see what something I posted on it,
that's the reaction I have. It's just always interesting content. And
you don't have to agree with me. I'm not trying to convince anybody. What I want is a tiny bit of what we used to have in Portland.
Yeah.
People used to argue. People used to debate, and I ain't saying there were times people had relationship changes over it, but in general, people didn't let.
Yeah, it was okay to have disagreements about things,
And now, we got. It's like the other day arguing with someone. They were mad about something that was here in Portland. With the funding I think it was some housing, and they were blaming Trump. And I said, look, guys, Trump is actually nothing.
When at some point you have to, the local guys have to take some responsibility.
Well, no, that's what I was going to say. I was like, no, Trump, why are you bringing up Trump? Right. He has nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
He has no control, no influence.
Well, even that, it's like people will start to bring up, oh, the HUD money got cut off. But, this housing authority, they have like 1,000 vacant units. It's like
more than that.
Yeah.
No, more than that.
It's like you can say all the funding cut off stuff, but they're sitting on all these.
A lot more.
Yeah.
A lot more than the 1,000. When people find out how many we got, I don't know how many, but I know it's a lot more than a couple of thousand.
Yeah.
I know that.
Right.
And but they're useless. When I say they're useless, there's a couple of things. One, they're horrible at getting people into housing. Horrible.
Right.
And very expensive. They spend 10 times more than your average property manager. But the other thing is they don't fit A lot of them aren't big enough for what a lot of people are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the studio apartments definitely there's a place for them, but we don't have 3,000 people right now looking for
Yeah.
studios.
Yeah.
You understand? Especially the ones that cost this much, even the ones that are subsidized. And like I tell people, a lot of this housing, the reason why it's vacant is a little bit between bad management, bad administration. They're doing very poor work getting people into them, qualifying them and getting them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're also these are types of properties that aren't in high demand, because if you got a wife and a kid and a pet sometimes, or a relative, mother, father living with you, whatever, in-law living with you,
Right.
you can't fit them in what
Right. It's not gonna work.
it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And then you add on, like we said earlier, people working from home.
Right.
So you're going to offer a family like that a one bedroom?
Yeah.
We got more one bedrooms than we need. One
Yeah.
bedrooms are important, but so are three bedrooms.
Right.
So are
right,
four
right.
bedrooms.
Yeah.
And, that's a problem that is going to have to be worked out. And then, we get the other issue while this is going on. We've got a lot of commercial property in downtown. Most of it, I'd say 60% of it, could never be converted affordably
Right.
into housing. Most of it couldn't. I know it's
Mostly
hard.
what, seismic, or there's a lot
There's
of
seismic issues on
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
On all of it, there's
Yeah.
seismic issues.
I know
but-
for what like the city wants for those, it's like incredibly expensive to
well,
convert.
well, you think about it.
Build it to code.
Your average build out for a residential property and a remodel, it can easily hit 150, $200 a foot. But just doing the seismic can be $700 or $800 a foot.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
You're not even talking about adding a bathroom or any of that.
No, just to make
Yeah.
it seismic
Yeah,
ready, especially
yeah.
when you get into the bigger buildings, like,
Right.
Big Pink, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how much that would cost to improve its seismic from where it was at in 1980, which is, it was at the top level,
Right.
but things have changed.
Yeah, it's
to bring that building into residential housing code and seismic, for seismic activity and stuff like that, in 2026, I don't even want to think about the number.
Right.
I will say this: that number is higher than what the last purchase price was. A lot more.
Yeah.
And then
Might as well build a new building.
after you've torn the building apart
Right.
to make it seismic ready, then you do the remodeling, and that's another added cost.
Right.
It's prohibitive. No, there's only a handful of buildings downtown, but we got to get ready for them. We should. There are buildings in downtown currently commercial that could be converted to residential. That's why the city's got to get on the job, on the spot,
Yeah.
and work in close cooperation with developers, with builders, with banks. I won't say banks, lenders. Banks ain't interested. They don't give unless it's above 4 stories. 4 stories and above.
Right. They're not gonna.
They're not even interested.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
do. You go
Yeah.
to U.S. Bank and, hey, I got a 3-story building. I want to put commercial on the bottom, residential on the top. It's gonna cost $10 million. I said, well, go find someone with $10 million.
Right.
Our $10 million isn't
Right.
interested in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come to us when you got $100 million project.
Right.
When you got $100 million project, we can sit down and talk.
Oh, yeah.
You better have your 20%.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's another thing people don't understand. $100 million project. Yeah. You're not getting into that like an FHA loan. You may need 20%. And like you wire that to the bank. It's
Yeah.
$100 million. We're going to give you $100 million, but you give us your $20 million. And then we're going to give you $100 million back.
Yeah.
And you're going to pay interest on that $20 million that you just gave us. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
A lot of people, Portlanders, don't think about that.
Yeah.
So think about it.
Yeah.
$100 million project. Bank wants you to cover 20% of it. So you wire them that 20. And then they say, hey, you got a $100 million credit line that you're paying interest on from day one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So 20% of that was your money
Right.
that you had in your
Yeah,
bank.
Totally.
And maybe your Schwab fund or whatever, and you're making interest off it. Now you've converted it to where you're now paying interest
Yeah.
on your money while you're building something. Like I said, these are things that the people we vote for, they poo-poo it. But guess what that does at the end of the day? It either convinces a builder to not build here, say, I'm not interested, between the cost and time and money to do business here. But ultimately, who paid for that? And the person who's renting that property out, the person who's buying that property. You know, there's a couple of projects here in Portland where the builder lost money. They went bankrupt even. They didn't make any money, right? Yeah. It didn't lower after it went through bankruptcy. It didn't lower what they got for rent.
You're right.
You know what I mean? It didn't lower the
yeah.
cost of the
No,
development.
it's incredible.
Guess who didn't lose any money? The investor.
Right. Yeah.
You understand? And if a bank was involved, guess who didn't lose any money? The bank.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The builder lost everything.
Right.
You know?
They're the kind of
Yeah.
losers.
And that's why I hear people on Facebook going off about builders. I'm like, one, I know it's the media that helped do this, and two, I know there's some people we voted for who like to find a scapegoat.
They demonize
They demonize
Yeah.
it, and I can tell people this is a new phenomenon that's come to Portland over the last 25 years. And that's why you hear me oftentimes tell some people they need to go home. They need to go away.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, I think you've shared a lot of wisdom here. I hope, like I'm not kidding when I say this. A lot of people in City Hall watch this show, so I hope that they're listening to you. You have a lot of good ideas to help our housing situation. I know you said they won't listen to you, but
they're not listening.
They're listening. I promise. Some of them are.
Okay. If they do, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if they're successful, Portland is successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't wish anything bad about them. Even when I tell them to go home, it's not like I'm wanting them to go home and jump into a cemetery. I'm just saying, you're in my hometown,
Right?
And you're screwing everything up, and you don't care.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going anywhere. You're gonna go.
Yeah, right. They'll be gone, and
So what? Go home.
Yeah.
Where your mom and dad lives. Do this.
There you go. Hell yeah. Well, thanks so much, Fred, for coming today. You're always welcome back. I love doing these housing episodes, and I learn a lot every time. So thanks, man.